do it. But. Good evening. Would like to welcome everybody to the May 8th Williamson County Commissioner meeting. I'd like to thank all department heads for being here, and I want to thank the sheriff's deputies who are here for their presence. The first item on our agenda is always the Invocation and Pledge. Invocation tonight will be given by Commissioner Mary Smith, the pledge to be given by Commissioner Aaron Nations. Please rise.
So many others who continuously provide the highest level of service to all who live, work, and visit our county on a day-to-day basis. We know the challenges they face, and we pray you give them the resources needed to face those challenges. Thank you for an engaged constituency who cares deeply about the many issues facing our county and who are willing to take time to freely serve our community. Thank you for being our comforter through a season of loss for our neighbors and several of us here tonight. We know we can turn to you in times of trouble, and you will not forsake us. For all our many blessings, we praise you. As our school year comes to an end, we ask you to be with our graduates as they embark on new journeys past high school. May they be blessed with relationships that build them up and help them see your purpose for their lives. We ask you to watch over our families as they transition to new schedules at the end of the school year. Give all our students the endurance and clarity to end the year strong so that they may reap the benefits of a relaxing summer vacation. We ask that you be with all of us through these challenging times as we are faced with spirits of deception where truth is presented as lies and lies presented as truth. As followers of Christ, we know there is but one truth which directly comes through your word. It is in John 14:6 we're reminded that you are the way and the truth and the life. May we hold steadfast to your word so that our paths may not be misguided and we represent your truth in all that we do. Open our hearts and minds to hear the needs of our citizens and to be able to put our own willfulness aside and use the authority entrusted to us to be wise stewards on their behalf. We are truly a blessed county to which you deserve all the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join me in reciting the pledge to our flag.
Also would like to remind everybody to please silence their cell phones through the duration of the meeting. Next item on our agenda is the roll call. If all the commissioners have their new devices, and will sign in by hitting their present button. And I believe everyone has. Record the roll, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 present, 1 absent. Commissioner Sturgeon absent.
Feeling under the weather and has some things going on there, so we hope the best for her. Next, we have approval of the minutes. Copies were sent out to each of you, and I'll entertain a motion. Is this a verbal motion or? Motion from Steve Smith, seconded by Morton. Any questions? Any comments? Seeing none, if we're ready to vote, if you're in favor of approving the minutes, press your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
22 yes, 1 abstain. Commissioner Mary Smith abstain.
Passes. Next, we have citizen communications. We allot 30 minutes total, and I believe we are fortunate enough that we have 10 people who signed up, so we don't have to do odd math. Each of you will get 3 minutes each, and I will read the names off in the order in which you guys signed in. I'll ask that when you come to the podium, you announce your name and the city that you live in. And as you get close to your 3 minutes, I'll give you a 10 or 15-second warning, and then I'll call time when you've reached the 3 minutes, if you go that far. Is that Olympus or Lumpus? Olympus? First up is Frank Olympus. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
My name is Frank Olympus. I live here in Franklin, 614 Glen Eagle Lane. For over 2 years, we've documented the problems with tabulators, ballot marking devices, and the bar-coded ballots they produce, voter rolls, vote centers, internet connections to these vote centers, even the VPNs that the Election Commission claims protect the internet. They don't. We've asked if we could present our research to the entire commission, and they've never let us. In 2021, we presented some of our early data to Bob Brown, but nothing was ever done with it. Thankfully, Commissioner Chris Richards gave us a chance to publicly share our latest research. On March 8th, 18 citizens spoke of their concerns surrounding voting machines. Not one person spoke in favor of the current machine-heavy system. Not one. We requested a 5 to 10-year life cycle cost analysis on a machine-centric voting system versus a hand-marked paper ballot-centric system, such as what Murray County has just implemented, and Williamson County just ran for the county GOP. What we got instead was an acquisition cost comparison about one vendor. So, you folks really don't know the cost or the challenges of the system that's being considered tonight. You need to listen to the grassroots citizens and their concerns, the folks who are going to follow me. Thank you for listening.
Next up, we have Alan Rogers.
Hello, my name is Alan Rogers. I live on Berwick Lane in Franklin. I'm a retired electrical engineer. I've only been in this wonderful state for about 1.5 years. I grew up in southern Missouri, but spent most of my time in around the Portland area in Washington State. I was an elected precinct committee officer for 8 years. I was very involved with voting, signature verification, that sort of thing. With my background, I programmed electronic computer systems for manufacturing plant production lines. I know that electronic programs can be hacked. I've seen it. I've read about it, especially in Dominion voting machines. It's there. It's been done. A good programmer can program the machine to record whatever the votes are up until the time the voting is all over. Everybody leaves, then the program internally changes the vote totals and wipes out that part of the program that allows the program to make those changes. So when an inspector comes to look at the program, you can say, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. Obviously, that's the correct vote. I know better. I taught my son how to program basic computer language 30 years ago when he was 10 years old. He's now an IT expert. I've talked to him about this issue. He agrees with me 100%. These machines can be hacked. They have been hacked. Here in Williamson County, they were hacked. And there'll be comments later on to detail that. Do not buy or use electronic voting machines. We need paper ballots and hand counting. It's worked for hundreds of years. You've got the proof right in front of you. If there's some issue with the count, it can be recounted. No big deal. Most precincts have less than 2,000 voters. It doesn't take that long, a day at the most. Big deal. I want accurate results, honest results. We need everybody to vote that's eligible to vote, but we need accurate counts.
15 seconds. Yeah, thank you, sir. Also, out of respect for these proceedings, I'll ask everyone to reserve from their applause in between speakers. Next speaker is Carl Allison.
Marking that applause right at that point. Carl Allison from Franklin, Tennessee. I just wanted to bring you something since I didn't know how long I had to speak. So this, which I'll show around to you, I'm holding up a map of the United States of America. And what you're seeing in here is that 67% of the United States uses hand-marked paper ballots. So I want it clear to state that it's doable. Hand-marked paper ballots are doable, okay? And on top of that, what I would say is this voting model, it's more reliable, it's more efficient, more transparent, more secure, and yes, it does cost less, okay? So I'm asking for a no vote, actually on any part of the ES&S bid, because in my view, there was nothing in that paper option that provided a good, solid proposal. But I do think there's an opportunity for a compromise in terms of with the hand-marked paper ballot and still following the law with the machine. But what does that mean? That means that we need to have our precincts back. As the last gentleman said, in a precinct you'll have, like in the November 2020 election, there was on average 3,200 voters per precinct. So it's very manageable. Now it depends on how many precincts you want now, because I know the precincts have changed. But it's manageable. It's more secure that when you have an individual that's been working that poll for, let's say, 20 years, they know their voters. They know when there's an issue. And then instead of me as a poll worker looking at a poll tabulator sheet that's 6 feet tall, which doesn't really mean anything to me because there's all these crisscross vote centers, I now have a tape that prints out that's only in my precinct. So I keep track of how my own precinct is doing, and I know my numbers. So that's another security level for that precinct. So I've worked the polls a couple of times, and I'm very proud that I'd be able to serve this county. And what I saw in those times is that the BMDs do have reliability issues. There were multiple times where I was at 75%. And so I have a reliability issue. But even when they're at 100%, there's an efficiency issue, meaning they're the bottleneck of the voting center, okay? They're the bottleneck. If you have hand-marked paper ballots, you're no longer. If you want to increase the bottleneck with a BMD, you have to buy more equipment. Hand-marked, you don't, okay? So for me, I'm asking as a constituent to have the precinct voting that's localized with hand-marked paper ballots and a no vote for leasing or buying this equipment. There is a better way that we can choose, and we can do it fast. I want to quickly
15 seconds.
I want to quickly say that in February of 2022, Trey Hargett said, you need a new system. And it was 2 months later that the Election Commission put in ES&S. So it's doable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have,
Ray somebody.
hopefully I'm not butchering this, Ray Goddard. All right.
Good evening. I'm Ray Geddert. I live in Franklin. I'm here today to ask you to vote down the electronic voting machines. I live, work, and vote in Williamson County. This is not a partisan issue. In the last two presidential elections, both Republicans and Democrats have questioned the presidential elections. So it is not partisan by any stretch of the imagination. I've worked in information technology for several decades, and I can tell you there isn't a computer system that is built that cannot be hacked, altered, or reprogrammed. So it is a huge concern. There's nothing more important than the integrity of our vote. I personally have used the electronic voting systems here, and in my household, I'm the IT expert, and I can tell you I find them to be very slow, very cumbersome, and very un-user-friendly. They are really, really slow to use. I've been voting for over 40 years of my life, and I can tell you that I've used paper ballots, and they are quick, they are easy, they're efficient, and they are not hackable. So I would ask you to vote down this, to replace the electronic system with a new one that still has the same flaws in it. Go back to paper ballots that have been tried and true for hundreds of years, and abandon electronic voting systems in Williamson County. Thank you.
Next, we have Brooke Anderson.
Hello, Brooke Anderson from Franklin. Everyone I know in Williamson County is in favor of hand-marked paper ballots, like every single one, every person I know and talk to. The Election Commission does not want hand-marked paper ballots, and they put out a document saying why, giving reasons why, which are basically three things. They argue that hand-marked paper ballots are not secure, which I feel is incorrect, are not popular, which I feel is incorrect, and are too expensive, which I feel is incorrect. A thing to keep in mind, and one of the earlier speakers talked about this, 45 out of 50 of the states in the United States and 208 out of 227 countries in the world use hand-marked paper ballots for at least part of their voting process, and some of them use it for all of their voting process. There are also some countries that have used electronic voting systems and then have considered them to be insecure and have problems and went back to hand-marked paper ballots. Those are countries like the UK, Germany, Norway, various places like that. They're not like, places that don't know what they're doing. My feeling is if all of those countries and places can use hand-marked paper ballots, we in Williamson County ought to be able to pull it off. To go specifically to some of the Election Commission's objections to it, that they say hand-marked paper ballots are less secure, they give a reference. But if you look at that reference, it doesn't really support their claim. And there are lots of references to the exact opposite, which isn't surprising. That kind of stands with your common sense of how that works. The Election Commission says that hand-marked paper ballots are not popular, except that a bunch of people here want them, and a lot of countries and states use them under popular support. That's kind of the definition of popularity. One of the things that they talk about is, hey, we tried it, and not many people requested to use the hand-marked paper ballots. Like, well, that's kind of a useless backing up of your claim, because you don't know, like, did everybody even know they could request that? How much of a hassle was it? What were the lines like for people who got to use it versus not got to use it? To me, if you look at what you need for hand-marked paper ballots, you might need like a
All right,
bunch
Tom.
of screened-in little stalls instead of like 200 people waiting an hour for 4 voting machines.
Time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Elise Farrell.
I'm a Franklin City resident. In the letter that was sent to you by the Williamson County Election Commission, 13 separate statements or concepts contained in that letter have been identified as either half-truths or just flat-out spin lies. The Williamson County Election Commission is ideologically stuck, and they refuse to look at facts. And I'm asking you to look at the facts. You're already hearing some of the facts. But when Williamson County Election Commission says voting centers are good for the voters, they're not. I've been a voter and a poll watcher. I've been a poll watcher over 2 elections, and I've watched as people were disenfranchised because they could not wait in hour-long lines. That never happened when I was voting in the precincts here, ever. So it never happened. That's just in disenfranchising people. It's not fair to them. And the only people vote centers are good for are the Williamson County Election Commission. They're not good for voters. Hasn't increased voting, hasn't increased people coming to the polls, hasn't done any of the things that they say voting centers are supposed to do. So I'm asking you that the problem is that these voting centers are at the heart of the problem with the machines. If we go back to precinct voting, we can do hand-marked paper ballots. And hand-marked paper ballots, I've been voting for 45 years. Hand-marked paper ballots, I voted basically for 35 out of those 45 years, I voted with hand-marked paper ballots. I never thought to question an election. Now, I'm questioning everything that happens. That shouldn't happen. Not in my country, not in this state. So if we don't go back to precinct voting and hand-marked paper ballots, you know, the fact will be we will never have another fair election in this county or in this state or in this country. So we're asking you to vote no on the machines. Vote no. Because they're not good for you and they're not good for us. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Elise Farrell. I'm sorry, that was Elise. I'm sorry. James Merkel.
Hello, I'm James Merkel, resident of Franklin, Tennessee, and low-level software engineer. I have a lot of qualms about electronic voting machines in general, and I'll just be quick and mention that here in Williamson County, on October 26, 2021, no one in here in this room probably remembers or knows this, but something called the Tennessee error happened, and that went national, and it was a Dominion problem, which is why we got rid of the Dominion, and that is that 2/3 of conservative votes were magically being erased and disappeared out of the system, and it was caught by a poll worker with a Post-it note who kept a tick for each person that voted. And of the 300 people that voted or so, only 78 were anywhere in any column of any part of any of the screens, which he also took pictures on his cell phone. So the government, of course, went crazy, and the EAC investigated, and multiple agencies were hired to investigate, and Dominion was demanded for answers. And after stonewalling for a year and a half, and all these people proved that the software did it, and it was part of a variety of different funny errors, Dominion still to this day is like, we don't know what happened. Anyway, so let's see, the last time I was here about this issue, the people that were for the electric voting tabulators were going, oh, it's cheaper because, hand ballots cost more. Let's say there's 150,000 votes in Williamson elections at the high end. Let's say a paper ballot costs $1. Very high, but let's just do that for now. You got 150,000 in ballots. You need a couple ballot counting machines for the whole county, which is typically how it's done. Use a scanner to scan the ballots and manual recounts if needed. And so basically that'd be 150,000 for an election, and yet they say the hand-marked paper ballots cost $475,000, more than the cost of all these voting machines. Anyway, so there's a lot of weird reasons this commission has been pro-electric voting machines when no one in this room probably wants it unless they're an employee of some of these larger companies. And these companies keep getting merged and they keep increasing their prices. So even if you were to say, it's not so bad right now, a couple of years from now, they're going to boil the frog and just increasing the rates and charge more for the special paper that you got to buy that goes with every vote and everything else for these electronic machines. And I just feel it'd be better to go to paper ballots. People trust it more. It's safer. It's done everywhere else, and it gets rid of the nonsense. I have a bunch of documents here that go over everyone's head, but they talk about all the exploits that were found provably by government researchers hired by the federal government.
15 seconds.
Of the Dominion machines. Their crypto keys, where they're stored, the hash algorithms, the encryption algorithms, etc. Anyway, if anyone cares, I've got 8 handouts. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Ray, Barbie.
Ray Barbie.
First of all, I don't know why we'd want to send money to the McCarthy Group in Nebraska, some shady private equity group, rather than keep it here in Williamson County, which is what would happen if we did paper ballots. Start there. Who has an IT background or any coding background? Anyone up here? A lot of people. One person. Okay. You should know what I'm about to say. A lot of people spoke before me did. Any computer that can receive a signal can be hacked. Whether it's on the internet, whether it's on a closed LAN, whether it has Bluetooth, it can set up a thumb drive, any of those things can be hacked. I guarantee it. Anyone who tells you different is lying to you or doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay. Second of all, there's nothing conceptually difficult about creating a vote counting machine. So why do all these companies throw hissy fits and threaten lawsuits and lawfare and prosecutions from Soros prosecutors every time someone wants to see their source code? Right? The only rational reason is because they don't want you, the average person, to understand how easy it is to manipulate these things. So let me tell you this. Because it's not conceptually difficult to create one of these things, I could do it. And if you gave me millions of dollars and said, create me a voting machine, where, oh, by the way, there's no paper backup that can be audited, and you can't look inside the machine to see what I did, and you can't look at my source code, I guarantee you, I will create a machine that will give any result I want, any result you want, any result any third party highest bidder wants, but not the result that the voters wanted. And that's what we're talking about, these ESS machines. That's exactly what they are. Any election run on a machine like that should be presumed fraudulent and a direct attack at one of the most fundamental rights of the people of this county. Thank you.
Bruce Lukanoff.
Hi, my name is Bruce Lukanoff. I live in Brentwood. And I'm not going to repeat a lot of my points have already been made, but I would just say that the design of these machines is almost particularly bad in the sense that there are 2 ways to design these, and that's where everything is a monolith and it's tested together and known ahead of time and can't be changed, whereas these machines are an unknown hodgepodge of patches based on commodity components, probably sourced from the lowest bidder. As recently as 2019, NBC News investigated ES&S and found that despite their claims, they had tons and tons of shipping receipts from China and the Philippines, despite their claim to being using American parts. And the machines, in fact, ES&S has failed and caused failed elections. As recently as January 2023, an ES&S error caused a election in New Jersey to be reversed. And so I'd ask you to consider it and take the action that will increase voter trust in the process. That is, rejecting these machines and going back to precincts and hand-marked, verifiable paper ballots. Thank you.
Last up is Sharon Spiegel.
Maybe Spiegel, but we'll see.
I think you're right.
My name is Sharon Spiegel, and I live and vote in Franklin, Tennessee. The elephant in the room as you review for vote the Election Commission's proposal is the fact that the only voting location prescribed by our Tennessee state constitution is found in Article 4, Section 1, which says that the General Assembly shall have the power to enact laws requiring voters to vote in the election precincts in which they may reside. Our state constitution gave the duty of determining precinct boundaries and composition to you, our elected county commissioners. Obama introduced the concept of vote centers, and in 2019, election commissioners here in Williamson County began a pilot of vote centers, which has radically changed forever how we were to vote as specified by our Tennessee state constitution. We used to vote in 43 precincts, but are now forced to vote in only 25 vote centers, which cause long lines and, worst of all, forces us to use electronic voting machines, internet-connected e-poll books, and election management systems centralizing our elections. Our founders wanted us to have decentralized elections to keep us safe as a country. The proposal from the Election Commission you will be voting on does not provide any cost analysis of a pure counterfeit-proof hand-marked paper ballot done in precinct voting prescribed by the Tennessee Constitution, which would allow for a finite number of ballots in a precinct. To return to precinct voting would basically consist of one style ballot for general elections because we would each be voting in a precinct. Instead, the Election Commission wants this cost comparison to compare apples and oranges by saying they are offering a hand-marked paper ballot when what they are offering is another expensive piece of electronic equipment called a ballot-on-demand printer. They can print a ballot to be hand-marked because the Election Commission insists on making us vote in vote centers, which require them to have every ballot for every precinct in the county in each vote center. It is because the Election Commission insists on keeping vote centers that the only simple choice for a hand-marked paper ballot without having hundreds of different ballots in a vote center becomes the expensive ballot-on-demand printer. Ballot-on-demand printers had huge problems across the country in 2020 and 2022 elections, such as in Maricopa County, Arizona, where they are still being litigated. Is that the outcome we want for Williamson County? A ballot-on-demand printer is not the counterfeit-proof hand-marked paper ballot we are asking for in this county. We are asking for you, the county commissioners, to take back your constitutional role and return us to precinct voting, where we can have a vastly cheaper, counterfeit-proof, hand-marked paper ballot,
15
which
seconds.
can be counted by tabulator, but must be hand-counted to certify an election. Please vote no on the ES&S proposal, and I thank you very much for the privilege of speaking to you.
We'd like to thank everyone who came out to speak. That concludes citizen communications. Next on the agenda is communications and messages. Out of respect of those who have come to hear the resolution on the voting machines, that being Resolution 52327, we do have a request to move that resolution up to the front of the agenda. If I hear no objections, we will move that resolution up to the front of appropriations.
Chair, I object. I've got a lot of emails coming in I'd like to review still.
We have one objection. I believe it takes two.
I would object.
Two objections. Council, is that? Won't be moved. All right, we will not be able to move that resolution up to the front. It will fall into the 27th position of the resolutions that we read tonight. We do have 4 proclamations tonight. Mayor Rogers Anderson.
Perfect timing.
Wow, you just walked in?
Yeah, just got here.
Wow.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to do two proclamations of appreciation. We have excellent employees in the county, but from time to time, we have individuals that go beyond their normal job, and in this particular incident, we had two individuals that actually saved someone's life while in performance of their job. So if I could have Gordon to come up, Gordon Hampton, and bring with you the families of, if they're both here, Bryce and Gary, to both come up, and I'll let you do the honors because they work for you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a privilege to be here tonight. You know, it's often, you know, when you're doing the course of business for the county, this is one of those great moments where we can talk about something that has a very, very happy ending. Gary Mapin, who is one of the people that we're going to have a proclamation read for, wasn't able to be here tonight, so I will read one because they are both the same. So if y'all would, come on, all of you, everybody come up here. Come on up. I had to leave a minute ago to get my glasses. I was feeling kind of confident that I could see. This is a proclamation of appreciation. Whereas Bryce Bradley joined the Williamson County Parks and Recreation staff 19 years ago and currently serves as facility manager at the Franklin Recreation Complex for Williamson County government. And whereas Bryce has received American Red Cross training and is certified in CPR and automated external defibrillator AED skills. And whereas on March 25th, 2023, while on duty at the Franklin Recreation Complex, patrons approached the front desk and asked for help for a fellow player who had collapsed in the gymnasium. And whereas Bryce immediately grabbed the AED and went into the gymnasium where another patron was administering CPR to a 59-year-old unconscious victim. Bryce immediately set the AED, which called for an immediate shock. And whereas Bryce continued CPR intermittently with fellow staff until the emergency personnel arrived and was credited with administering life-saving assistance to the patron, who was transported to a medical facility and anticipates a full recovery. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Mayors Rogers Anderson, as Mayor of Williamson County, Tennessee, and members of the Board of Commissioners meeting regular session this 8th day of May, 2023, hereby express our appreciation to Mr. Bryce Bradley for effectively administering life-saving skills while maintaining a calm, compassionate, and professional demeanor, and is hereby recognized for his heroism. Bryce. Thank you all for that. I have a statement from the family. They weren't able to be here tonight, but they sent something and they asked for me to read that. The family is Ken and Candy Harms. First of all, he sent Bryce this message. Greetings, Bryce. I'm sorry I don't remember the aquatics manager name or correct title. Would you please insert the correct information into the note below? I'm sorry I can't be there in person to recognize the team and share my appreciation in person. Thank you for saving my life. Here is the message that he and his family put together. I remember going to play pickleball Saturday morning, March 25th at the Franklin Recreation Center. I remember waking up sometime Tuesday afternoon on March 28th. I was at Vanderbilt Hospital in intensive care. I was told I died playing pickleball. I can see by the records on my iWatch, I played my first match, and then sometime around 9:45, my heart stopped beating. I was told I collapsed during my match and was unresponsive. Lucky for me, I was saved by a fellow pickleball player, the facilities manager, Bryce Bradley, and the aquatics manager, Gary Mapin, who jumped in and performed CPR. I'm very thankful that the team was trained in CPR and they had the necessary equipment to save my life. I was told I didn't have a pulse, and they used the AED twice to start my heart. I'm so thankful for their quick action that it saved my life and prevented any brain damage. I am recovering well and expect 100% recovery. I hope to get back to pickleball in a few months. Forever thankful, Ken and Candy Harms. I also have some people with me that were part of the team that were very, very critical. When the situation like this occurs, there's notification, it goes to the front desk, and then everybody is trained to get into life-saving mode. Wally Fremont has been an employee longer than I have for Williamson County Parks. And Wally, thank you so much for what you did.
Thank you very much.
Megan Harrison, who, by the way, is the daughter of our own Andrea Johnson and Glenn Johnson, is one of our facility aquatics managers and supervisors. She was there that day, and she was very critical in standing right there with Gary and Bryce during this entire save. On several occasions, she was very ready to jump in and said that she would be more than glad to tap in and start doing the compression. I'm sure that Ken Harms probably wouldn't have minded Megan doing a few, in that they broke about 4 of his ribs during the process of doing the CPR. So, Megan, thank you for your calm and professional manner in which you handled that. That's very impressive for a young lady. So once again, Gary Mapin wasn't able to be here. I want to thank the other staff. Frank Hubbock has trained almost all of our staff. He and Evan Hampton, who is our superintendent of aquatics, they do the training for these folks. And then, of course, seated over there, stand up, is Rick Taylor, our deputy director. So thank you for all the support. I know that we're voting tonight on AEDs. This wasn't meant to be a timely, I promise that, but it just shows you that we need to be prepared for all these situations that occurred, because we do deal with the public every single day, and we try to be ready for everything that might happen. Once again, thank you all very much. Mayor, thank you for letting me do this.
Chairman, we have 2 other proclamations, but in view of that, I'm going to move one up, the Emergency Medical Service Week. And so if those appropriate people would come up, I'll read this proclamation into the minutes. Come on up, Mike. You want the big boss to come up too? Come on up here. Come on. So this particular proclamation is declaring May the 21st to the 27th of this year as Emergency Medical Service Week. Whereas emergency medical services are an essential public service, as we've seen, and the members of the EMS system stand ready to provide passionate and life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas the access to high-quality emergency care improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illnesses or injuries. And we are fortunate that our emergency medical services continue to grow and keep pace with the expansions of one of the best communities in the United States for providing innovative, best-in-class care and support to those that they serve every day. Whereas the EMS system consists of cross-jurisdictional collaborative partnerships of first responders, the Williamson Health Emergency Medical Technicians, paramedics and critical care paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, law enforcement officers, educators, administrators, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of the emergency medical service team whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. Whereas it's appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Service Week. By my signature and the seal, we proclaim that May 21st through the 27th, 2023 is Emergency Medical Service Week in Williamson County. Ms. Wallace?
Thank you sincerely. Really just want to briefly say we are incredibly blessed to be a part of this community. We not only is Williamson County one of the best communities in this country, but we are very fortunate that we do have an incredible emergency medical services system, and it's a broad, vast system, as the mayor mentioned. It involves a lot of individuals, a lot of different agencies, and we're very, very fortunate for that. So thank you for all the support. We're grateful for it. It's all to serve you in this great community. It's our privilege to do so. So thank you sincerely.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, finally, we need someone to help pay for all this, and we'll do that through tourism. Maureen, would you please come up? Let me read this proclamation. Whereas Williamson County has a strong and a broad-based tourism industry, including historical sites and attractions, charming downtown areas, outstanding lodging and dining facilities, first-class meeting venues, unique and distinct shopping, and unparalleled scenic beauty. And each year, Williamson County attracts visitors from all over the United States and several foreign countries for leisure, business, meeting, and sports-related travel. And whereas the latest tourism information released by the state of Tennessee for 2021 showed that the hospitality industry employed approximately 7,540 in Williamson County. And the same report shows that $55.31 million in direct state taxes were collected countywide and $152,000 collected in daily state taxes countywide, whereas $1.4 billion direct visitor spending, or 2.8 million daily expenditures by visitors. Williamson County ranks 6th in the state of Tennessee in visitor spending. And as a result of those tourism received revenues, the average Williamson County household saves $1,111 in state and local taxes on an annual basis. It's important to continue to communicate that growing travel leads to economic growth and benefits business in Williamson County. It is by my signature and the seal, May 7th through the 13th, is designated as Travel and Tourism Week in Williamson County. Maureen Thornton, our director.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, as always, thank you all for your support of tourism and the opportunity for our organization to help drive continued growth and contribution to our economy. I have just a stack up here for each of you, our most recent vacation guide, a reminder invitation to a celebration we have tomorrow, and a Williamson County tourism sticker for you. So thank you all for your support. I really appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is reports of county offices. Mayor Rogers Anderson.
Again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I think the presentation that Mike Madison is about to make on regional growth planning it will be very important. Just a little history. Back in 1998-99, Public Chapter 1101 was implemented to try to get cities and counties to define the areas that they're going to grow in. Over 20 some odd years ago, that piece of legislation was enacted out of Nashville, And all of the cities in the county sat down at that time and said, this is how we intend to grow for the next 20 years, and we will look at that 20 years out. Well, 20 plus years have gone by, and about 9 months, 10 months ago, we started the journey with all of our cities and counties coming together with their city mayors, their city managers, their legal staff, their planning staff, to begin an advisory committee and looking at how we're going to grow in Williamson County in the next 5 to 10 years. We're shortening the period of time that this will come back to you. But about every 5 years, this will be brought up so you can redefine those cities, Fairview and Thompson Station and Spring Hill and Fairview, Franklin and Brentwood and Nolensville, as well as the county. So Mike has a presentation for you tonight. It's about 10 minutes. I hope it sparks some interest on your part in how we will probably look in the next 5 years, and how important that is that you engage with yourself, your citizens, and the people around you, because we are still one of the fastest growing, about number 2 in the state, fastest growing county in the United States. Rutherford County did overtake us in that area, which they can have that distinction. But it is important to define how our cities, and so far I will tell you that we've had 100% buy-in from our cities and our legal people. Now there's still some tweaking to be done, but now's the journey for the utility companies, all of the affected parties, so we can get this defined, because ultimately it will come for a vote. I'm looking for it somewhere in the spring of 2024. It'll take us a while to get there. Mike?
Okay, thank you for that, Mayor Anderson. Good evening, everybody. Mayor Anderson said I'd have about 10 minutes. I'm going to try to do this in 5. I know you've got a very packed agenda, so I'll run through it quickly while still giving you a good, proper update. So as Mayor Anderson said, we've been working with all 6 of the municipalities in the county over the past 9 months or a year, informally, to look at regional growth planning issues. That process has gone extremely well, been very productive, and so based on that work, a decision has been made to embark on formally amending the overall Williamson County growth plan. So the growth plan, as many of you know, is that system of urban growth boundaries, planned growth areas, and rural areas. The urban growth boundaries are the areas surrounding each of the municipalities where those cities have said at some point, that's where the growth is going to occur. The planned growth areas are areas in the unincorporated county where additional development is projected, more so than just in the rural areas. Examples of that are Leapers Fork and Triune. And then, of course, the rural areas are everything else in the unincorporated part of the county. This is a system that's mandated by the state legislature, and the current plan was adopted around 2000 or 2001. This is a map that shows what that current plan is. This is the map that was adopted back in 2000. I'll show you a better map depicting these areas, but you can see the municipalities in each respective color, surrounded by a darker shade of the same color, which represents the urban growth boundaries. Not to be confused with the growth plan, you all will remember the comprehensive land use plan that was adopted by the county just a few years ago. A lot of you are familiar with that. Comprehensive plan is the chief policy document with respect to growth and development issues. And while there were many recommendations contained in that plan, there are kind of 2 overarching ideas that were contained in that. The first one was to reduce allowable residential densities in the rural areas outside of urban growth boundaries, villages and hamlets. That's been done. And the second key idea was to work with the various municipalities and the county on those regional growth management issues. And so we've been working with them informally to take a look at where growth should occur based upon population projections, available land, infrastructure, and other factors. This process has included working with an advisory group, as Mayor Anderson said, also a planners group consisting of people like myself and my counterparts that have done a lot of the analysis and heavy lifting, some technical advisors like our utility people and roads people, and it's been facilitated by Greg Dale, who a lot of you remember from the comprehensive plan. So each of the jurisdictions identified changes to the growth patterns that they had previously established. And so as a result of that, as I said, a decision has been made to pursue an amendment to the overall Williamson County Growth Plan. And that process was formally initiated by Mayor Anderson a week ago by letter to the other mayors in the county. So I'm going to show you a few maps real quickly before I wind down this presentation. This is an updated map from the one I showed you earlier. You can see those 6 different municipalities in the colors. You can see their growth boundaries surrounding those. I'll focus your attention on the peach-colored areas, one out by Triune, and then one up in the north part of the county in what we call grassland area. Those are currently the county's planned growth areas based on the plan that's been in place for many years. Obviously, our land use policies were shaped by the comprehensive plan that was adopted a few years ago, which changed that. And so what we're proposing in terms of the county's part, the planned growth areas and rural areas, is this scaled back version where the planned growth areas are in yellow and everything in green would be a rural area. So just to toggle back and forth real quickly, you can see that those planned growth areas in the unincorporated county have shifted. There are a few more areas, but the amount of area is much smaller, again, based on the recommendations from the comprehensive plan. This map here is back to the current system, and I want to show you quickly a map that reflects the different cities' ideas of where their growth is headed. And again, just to toggle back and forth, you can see that there are some differences. It's not extremely pronounced, but you can see that with each of the jurisdictions there are some changes. We can make these maps available to you as well. We also feel like instead of just having the growth plan consist of maps, we feel like it would be prudent to supplement those maps with some policies and strategies to help make that overall system work as effectively as it can. And so this is a slide that just depicts some of those ideas that have been discussed in the advisory group. The goal of ensuring that system work as effectively as possible. We need to be looking at the interim policies for those urban growth boundaries in terms of how development should occur while it's still in the county prior to annexation. There's been this idea that's been accepted by everyone, at least informally with the advisory committee, that cities should not annex outside of those urban growth boundaries. If we're going to all the trouble of defining the boundaries and all that evaluation, they shouldn't annex outside of those boundaries. Second main idea is that there should be some continued collaborative planning that takes place after this growth plan is adopted. So there's a commitment to revisit the growth plan at least every 5 years. There's the idea of establishing an implementation committee so that once the plan is adopted, there's a group that meets on a regular basis, perhaps quarterly, to look at implementation issues. And then also the notion of establishing a multi-jurisdictional entity to focus on transportation planning in our county. So the state statute prescribes that there be a coordinating committee when we update the growth plan. And I'm not going to go through this membership, But these are the prescribed types of people that need to be on there. So it is the mayor of each jurisdiction or their designee. And then you can see there are some other people representing the chamber, representing schools, and some other groups. Real quickly on the timeline before I close, we're in the process now, each jurisdiction is in the process of identifying the people that would serve on their coordinating committee. The first meeting of that coordinating committee has been scheduled for mid-June. And then following that, and sometime during the summer, each of the 7 jurisdictions are required to hold 2 public hearings. So you all will have a role there. We're thinking one of those public hearings would take place at the Planning Commission level, another one somewhere out in the community. We will let you know when those are and encourage you to participate in that. So then there would be a series of coordinating committee meetings to listen to the proposals and prepare a draft plan. Then the coordinating committee itself has to hold 2 public hearings, following which they would prepare their recommended plan that they would transmit to each of the jurisdictions. We're thinking this fall, perhaps October. And then each of the jurisdictions would need to ratify that plan. We're thinking in the fall, November, December. And then once each jurisdiction has done that, the plan has to be sent to the state for them to formally accept that plan. So this is coming up. It's important work, and we hope that you'll participate. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Madison? Commissioner Jennifer Mason.
Thank you. I'm curious, I noticed part of the plan was that the municipalities would agree not to annex outside of their urban growth boundary. Currently, under the current plan, can they do so? Is it more of a understanding that they won't, but legally they can? Or what sanction, if any, would there be if they do propose to grow outside their urban growth boundary?
Good question. So, and I'm not an expert on this, but I do know that there are some circumstances in which they can annex outside the boundaries, and that's been happening to some degree. Franklin, for instance, has been annexing property down in the Goose Creek area. So there are some circumstances that allow them to do that. Thus far, at least in the advisory group, there's been a commitment not to do that, and what we envision is that there be some intergovernmental agreements that formally establish that.
And if that happens, would there be some type of sanction or public censor, or is it really they can still do it even though they've agreed not to?
I would need to leave that to one of the lawyers.
County, and we're going to be discussing that, trying to come up with an interlocal that is enforceable,
Okay.
lays out the boundaries, and has what those enforcement mechanisms might be. We haven't had that first meeting yet. It'll be running parallel with some of the processes that Mike's talked about. It's the intent to make it enforceable, though.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
Just to follow up on Jennifer's question, if a property owner asks to be annexed and they're outside the urban growth boundary, odds are they will be annexed probably if they ask to be. Say they want to develop some land and they're selling it. We have a restriction 5 acres per house. But that's my question. It's just a follow-up. If a property owner asks to be annexed into a city that is not in the urban growth boundary, more than likely they will be annexed.
No, I wouldn't say that as a broad brush. I think it would depend on factors like whether they could extend sewer, whether it's contiguous, things along those lines. But in the future, we hope that the answer would be, hey, we've got this intergovernmental agreement, and no, we're not going to consider annexing property that's outside the growth boundary. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Madison? I'm seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, I think all of you realize one of the reasons we're doing this, first of all, it's been 20 years. Second of all, we have about 255,000, 258,000 people in our county right now. All of the numbers are indicating by the year 2045, which is another 20 years out, we'll be at about 475,000 people. It's almost a doubling of our population. And as you will see tonight in the multiple resolutions, you're dealing with a lot of money issues. A lot of these are grants. And I thank you publicly for allowing us to hire a grant procurer and a writer, someone that is doing that job for us and trying to secure those Nashville dollars or Washington dollars that are out there, not always relying on the local tax burden. I think the cities are feeling this pressure, just like you are. At the school level, when the school is consuming 65 to 70% of the total budget, we need help from every point that we can get, and so that if we can have these cities to define these areas, then we can do better planning for where schools are going, as whereas the population of the students are going. So we'll keep you apprised of this. It is a critical piece, as a few of us were around at the last time we did this, and I think it worked, but we're learning areas that we can improve on. So next, I'll bring up the lady that's in charge of all the money, Phoebe, and kind of give you an overview of the financial conditions of the county and let her answer any of the questions. Phoebe?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Included in your packet this evening, you will find budget reports for both the months of February and March. As of March 31st, we have received 93.5% of our estimated revenue for the fiscal year 23 for the general fund. And we are on target to exceed our projections for this fiscal year, June 20. Or June 30, I guess. I'm kind of rushing, aren't I? Historically, March has been one of, if not the largest month for collections of privilege tax and education impact fees. This again has held true for this fiscal year. Year to date, net collections for the month of March was $1,661,295 for education impact fee. This is the largest month of collections we have had so far this fiscal year. Total privilege tax collections for March is $1,114,791. This too is an increase over the prior month. We have also received a profit for the Cool Springs Conference Center for both the months of February and March. Our total profit received from the Conference Center for the fiscal year to date is $272,287, and this is an increase over the last year for the same time period. So as you can see, we are still on target, and again, I will not close the year at 6:20. We will do that at 6:30. But anyway, I did like to let you know that this has been a good month, and the privilege tax and education impact fees, although down from last year slightly, they have been increased for the month of March. So if there are any questions, I will take those at this time.
Questions for Phoebe Riley? I'm seeing none. Thank you.
Chairman, I'll answer any questions you may have. I'm finished.
Questions for the mayor? I see none. Thank you, Rogers. Next up is our schools report. Superintendent Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioners. You know that we do have a few items on your agenda, some substantial capital requests. But first, I want to let you know that, as you know, This time of year is a celebration time for our schools. And Commissioner Smith, thank you for mentioning our teachers in your prayers. I want to mention a couple of items from a celebration perspective. This year we broke another record with 78 National Merit Scholars. We had 97 all-state band, choir, orchestra, and theater students, another record. We've been making a lot of good progress, and we've been celebrating those successes as well. Last week, we had a celebration for our arts programs. We had a lot of great performances. Our athletic celebrations will come a little bit near right at the end of the school year, and we're about 2.5 weeks left for students. And tomorrow night, we are going to be celebrating 47 of our seniors who committed to the U.S. military. And we're very, very proud of that. And I've been thinking about a quote because I'm going to be speaking at the celebration, and I don't know what I'll ultimately say to them tomorrow night, but the numbers reminded me to look and see how many members of our nation are currently serving in the active military. And if I got my numbers right, it's somewhere around 0.4% of the total U.S. population is defending all of us, based on the research I've seen. And it's a pretty impressive number. And it does make me think about that Winston Churchill quote during the Battle of Britain. I think it's applicable to us as well. Never have so few given so much for so many. And so I just want you to remember that our community is raising good children, raising good students, and raising good citizens. So thank you for the support you've been giving to make that happen. When the items come up on the agenda, I'll certainly be open to speaking to you, but if you have any questions now, I'll be happy to take them.
Questions for Superintendent Golden? I see none.
Thank you.
Sorry. Commissioner Steve Smith.
Jason, have we gotten an update on the state numbers for the budget?
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. You all recall that we've been going through the state review process and a new funding model. The short answer is yes, we do have the numbers. We had initiated our budget process at a deficit that started at about $9 million based on potential projections for sales tax and TISA, which is what the state calls the funding model. Based on the projections we received at the beginning of this week, our budget is now a balanced budget with about $2.5 million in the black or to the good based on the projections the state gave us. To give you a little bit more detail related to that, the original projections about a year ago when they were going through the approval process at the state level, they projected we would receive about $27.5 million more under this new model. The projection is now at $20.8 million, so a drop of about 6-point-something million. But with our budgeting, we anticipated potential for that, so we included in our budget less, and we got a little bit more based on the projections.
Commissioner Greg Lawrence.
Good evening, Jason. Just to follow up on Commissioner Smith's question, so why did the number go down from 27.5 to 20.8?
Number one, the state projected a much higher growth rate than we anticipated. So that was one item that they worked on the post-COVID high numbers, and so they projected that out on a continuous basis with a little bit of a multiplier. We knew that wasn't going to happen. Second, there were a couple of items that we know were subsumed into the formula that used to be independent funding amounts. A little bit of safety, some of our coordinated school health numbers. So between those were the bulk of the reduced numbers. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Superintendent Golden? I'm seeing none. Thank you, sir. Next up is our hospital report. Mr. Phil Mazuka.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you again for giving us time to present a quick update for the hospital. I know you have a busy agenda, so we'll try to get through this fairly quickly. Project update, we're topping out our steel on our west tower on Monday, the 15th. So that's pretty exciting for us. That's been about a 5-month steel project. 2 days later, on May 17th at 10:30 in the morning, we'll be celebrating the expanded part of our emergency room with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. On the next day, May 18th at 7 o'clock in the morning, we'll be opening the new ER expansion. We'll then renovate the remainder of the existing adult ER in phases over the next year, with the renovated phases opening as they're completed. And on June 5th, we'll be opening our new postpartum rooms and newborn nursery in the West Tower. The remainder of the West Tower project, as you know, is scheduled to be completed in May of 2024. This week, we recognize hospitals and healthcare workers during National Hospital Week. Each year, American hospitals deliver 3.5 million babies, care for 32 million people admitted to hospitals, and provide emergency care for 123 million people. Hospitals across the country also employ about 6.3 million people. For Williamson Health, we deliver over 1,700 babies a year, care for over 9,000 people to admitted to our hospital, and provide emergency care for over 50,000. Each year we employ about 2,000 people. This week is also recognized as National Nurses Week. Williamson Health employs about 500 RNs and a nursing staff of about 650. This year's National Hospital Week slogan is "We Are Healthcare." This week is a time for us to recognize the vital role hospitals play in our communities, but more importantly, to celebrate all the healthcare workers who are essential to the success of our hospitals. These individuals not only treat and comfort the sick, but they also welcome new lives into the world. They are there every hour, every day, for everyone across the country and in our community. I'm honored to express my appreciation and gratitude to our incredible healthcare team who dedicate their lives in support of our mission to meet the healthcare needs of the communities we serve. They are truly heroes. To our community, I would ask that you reach out to a healthcare worker this week and join me in thanking them for their selfless dedication and commitment to helping others, fostering health, and representing hope with great talent and compassion. With that, I'll turn it over to Mike for our financial report.
Thank you, Phil. Good evening. In your package, guys, you see the financial statements highlights sheet. I'd like to go over that real quickly. As you know, there's 3 sections on it: the income statement on the top, the balance sheet in the middle, and the key stats on the bottom. Starting at the bottom, you can see that some of our stats were a little bit less than what our averages have been. Our inpatient volume is a little bit softer than the last couple months, but you can't see this, but we've had some pretty strong growth in our outpatient side. Our physician offices are 12% up year over year. Our GI is up 4%. Our cath lab, our new cath lab, is up 40% year over year, and ER visits are up 8%. You can see we generated right at our budget for net revenue. Our OpEx, we're still a little bit challenged by our staffing. That's requiring us to continue to use contract agency staffing to the tune of about $1 million, and that puts us over that. And we made up some good money on our interest income, as you can see the non-operating income there. From a collection standpoint, we had another really record month, collected almost $27 million in cash. You see our cash balances, and you can see that our debt coverage, we're 3.5 on a 1.5 covenant. So overall, we had a pretty good month. Anybody have any questions?
Question from Commissioner Lawrence.
Good evening, Mike and Phil. I want to join in the commission and thanking all you guys for, since it is Emergency Services Week, for running a very good emergency room. I've been there a few times myself, and my family members have. And but on that note, I have experienced something that a friend of mine experienced recently. She went down there and experienced a very long wait time, a couple hours before she was finally treated, which I know, we were working on that. So can you tell us how many beds or bays you're adding, and do you expect that to alleviate the wait times when you open up the new facility?
Yeah, for our adult emergency room, we're going from 28 beds to 43 beds. And so that, if you really look at it over time, the 28 beds themselves, if everything stayed the same across 24 hours, we would have more than adequate number of beds to handle the volume. But because you have the peaks and valleys at times, we'll have significant wait in the ER. And so we're going to, with this expansion now, we don't really gain beds today with this new part opening up because we're going back and taking beds out to renovate them. But within the next 3 months, we should start to see an increase in the number of beds we have on our way from the 28 to 43, which we'll ultimately have in May of 2024. So that will be way more than enough to handle the volume and even projected volume going into the future. Our ER waiting room also is about double in size, so that opens up next week. And so it'll be a more comfortable environment to wait when you're waiting in the emergency department. But our goal is to shorten those waits, as you know.
Any other questions for Mr. Mizuko or Mr. Genesee? I see none, thank you. Are there any other county offices wishing to report at this time? If not, then we move on to elections and appointments. I've just been told where we normally do this with a voice vote, we're going to try to do it tonight using our new tablets. We have 2 elections and appointments to go through tonight. The first one is Regional Planning Commission, a 4-year term expiring 3 of 27. Term expiring is John Lackey. Nomination is Lee Kennedy. I have a proper motion from Tom Tunnicliffe. I have a second from Chaz Morton. Any questions? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, if you are in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Motion. Him for 40 years of tremendous service to the county. Next up is Zoning Appeals Board. Filling an unexpired term, expiring in 3 of 24, is Sue Workman is resigning. Nomination is Dave Parker. We have a proper motion from Commissioner Guffey, seconded by Commissioner Steve Smith. Any questions? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, all those in favor signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
And we also want to thank Sue Workman for over 24 years of service to the community in that position. Next, we have our consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion. Proper motion made by Commissioner Steve Smith, seconded by Commissioner Paul Webb. Any questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, if you are in favor of approving the consent agenda, press your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. There's no unfinished business this evening, so we are on to appropriations. And our first resolution, Resolution 523-1. Resolution amending the 22-23 general purpose school budget, carrying forward $32,775.09 for flag football, revenues to come from donations. Proper motion made by Commissioner Ricky Jones, seconded by Commissioner David Landrum. The school board was 11 in favor, 0 against. Education committee 5-4, 0 against. Budget committee 3-4, 0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Jones.
This is where the Tennessee Titans have made a donation. Is it okay?
Go ahead. I think we're having trouble with all the mics. Just speak loudly.
Tennessee Titans has provided money for flag football with supplements and the jerseys and the flags and officiating during the last 2 years.
Any questions? I have a question from Commissioner Herbert.
Oh, no, what that was for, we had in our packet for John Walsh on Williamson County Emergency Report.
So he is a City of Franklin appointee, so you all don't have to confirm him that he's appointed by the mayor. That's for your information only.
Right now, we're trying to fix the mic, so in the time being, everybody speak loudly if you can. Any questions on Resolution 523-1? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All those in favor signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 523-2, resolution requesting an intent to fund in the amount of $12,202,560 for the Williamson County Board of Education's 22-23 information technology needs. On a motion from Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. School Board was 11-4-0 against. Education Committee took no action. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against as amended. We'll ask for an explanation on this one from Commissioner Herbert, please.
Can you hear me? Talk loud. A little bit more. Oh, it came on.
Might be working now.
Is it working now?
There we go.
Okay. The Budget Committee amended this to $3,113,500, and all we approved were the safety and security parts of this resolution because the schools have requested a lot of other capital needs, and we wanted to do all those at once, but we wanted to make sure they were able to do any of the security needs of the schools before we went any further, so they could go and get that done.
Are you making a motion for the amendment, Commissioner Herbert?
Yes, I'm making a motion for the amendment.
Proper motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. So we are voting on the amendment. If it's loaded. There we go. If you are in favor of the amendment, signify by pressing the yes button. I'm sorry, the amendment's not yet loaded. Amendment been loaded? Okay. Amendment is now loaded. If you are in favor of the amendment, we already had a motion from Commissioner Herbert and a second from Commissioner Tunnicliffe. And we do have a question on the amendment before we vote. Commissioner Clifford, please.
I was curious as to Supervisor Alden's response, whether this reduction is doing anything significant or anything unforeseen, or is it general?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. We of course made our request from our 5-year capital plan. We recognize that you all have to look at the budget as a whole. Any delay does delay our ordering any product. So from a technology standpoint, it will cause a delay. Our plan for the computers that are included in this include a cycling purchase. We had originally intended to purchase computers through a lease purchase agreement, but the states changed some of the rules. So as part of this, we're actually going to do a little bit more research and see if there's an alternate. Short answer is, we'd like to have the funding now, but we respect your decision if you vote to delay it for a month.
Any other questions for Superintendent on the amendment? See none. Do we have the amendment loaded yet? We're ready to vote, I believe, yes. Okay. votes on our screen. We're going to voice vote this amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The amendment passes. We're on to the main resolution as amended. What did she say? Do we need to voice vote it too?
Do we need to voice vote as amended, Jamie? Yes, the mics are working. What did you do?
Well, let's do some issues there, so I don't know how we got a double click there.
Because we were trying, it went off, and so we were logging on, and it said there was a.
Point of order.
Mm-hmm.
Are we supposed to, on any amendment, have a vote on this?
We have to have it on in the appropriation resolution, but we don't have to have it on the amendment.
Okay.
We end up voice voting this. You can't amend it.
You can't voice vote as amended on the resolution as a whole. You have to get roll call. This is an appropriation.
Just a second.
Apologize to all those in attendance. We have new equipment that we're working on or working with for the first time this evening and having a little technical difficulties. I'm told it's loaded. If it pops up on your screen here momentarily, if you are in favor, we will press our yes button. There it is. If you are against the resolution as amended, press your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes as amended. Resolution 523-3, resolution requesting an intent to fund in the amount of $11,169,000 for the Williamson County Board of Education's 22-23 major asphalt, roofs, HVAC, and wastewater plant needs. Proper motion made by Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. School Board was 11-4-0 against. Education 5-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Jones.
This is a part of the 5-year capital outlay plan.
With the asphalt roofs and all the other needs at this time. Sorry about my voice. All the allergies are killing me.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Any questions? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All those in favor signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 523-4, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 Veterans Services budget by $300. Revenues to come from Memorial Brick Paver sales. Proper motion made by Commissioner Herbert, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. The Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is where the Veterans Service Office has been selling memorial brick pavers in honor of a memory of a veteran, and this is the revenue from that, and they will spend it on supplies for other bricks.
Any questions? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All those in favor signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes, and the mayor asked me just to remind everyone that our Memorial Day celebration, annual celebration, will be Monday, May 29th, starting at 10 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park, located in downtown Franklin at 5 Points. Hope everyone can come. Resolution number 523-5, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 capital projects archives budget by $100,000, revenues to come from the Archives and Records Management Fee Reserve account. Motion made by Commissioner Herbert, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
An overage on the construction of the new county archives where they store all the records, and the money will be from where they have filing fees and reserve funds.
Any questions? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? If you are in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 523-6, resolution of the Williamson County Board of Commissioners appropriating up to $2,675,000 for the purchase of new ambulances, revenues to come from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Motion made by Commissioner Paul Webb, seconded by Commissioner Aaron Nations. Law Enforcement Public Health was 4-0 against. Budget Committee was 3-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
As you can see, ARPA funds are for public health. There are lessons we learned during the pandemic, and ambulances are qualified. This will put 5 replacement ambulances into the fleet and add 1 new unit, which is expected to go to the new station at Mac Hatcher at the First Franklin United Methodist Church.
Any questions? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, press your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 523-7, resolution amending the 22-23 Highway Department budget and appropriating up to $600,000 for hot mix, liquid asphalt, and pipe costs. Revenues to come from unappropriated highway fund balance. Motion made by Commissioner Paul Webb, seconded by Commissioner Tom Tunnicliffe. Highway Commission was 5-0 against. Budget Committee 3-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
As you probably know, expenditures have gone up, especially in the road construction business, and we are moving funds from the highway fund balance. Mr. Hood is here if anyone has any specific questions.
Questions for Mr. Hood or on the resolution? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, if you're in favor, press your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 523-8, resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Williamson County appropriating funds not to exceed $3 million for the expansion of broadband capability within Williamson County revenues to come from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Motion made by Commissioner Webb, seconded by Commissioner Nations. Budget Committee was 3-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
Again, this is money coming from the state in an amount of $13 million. $3 million. And this is the resolution that provides funding for the agreement we passed last year when we first went for the broadband grant application. So the total project is right at $20 million to put the broadband in the rural unserved areas of Williamson County.
Any questions? Seeing none, if you are in favor of the resolution, press your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 523-9, resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Williamson County appropriating $49,649 for the purchase of 28 automated external defibrillators, AEDs, including shipping for parks and recreation facilities. Revenues to come from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Motion made by Commissioner Webb, seconded by Commissioner Sanford. Parks and Rec, again, did not meet on this one. Budget Committee was 3-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
Again, ARPA funds can be used for matters of the public health. As you heard tonight, AEDs were used to save a person's life. We are going to take these and replace the units that have expired and add units to the parks and recreation facilities around the county. And this is in addition to the ones that we approved earlier to go in the non-recreation, non-school facilities in the county.
Any questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 523-10, resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Williamson County appropriating funds not to exceed $46,000 for the upgrade of broadband capability at the Williamson County Agricultural Exposition Park. Revenues to come from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Webb. Property Committee was 5-0 against. Budget Committee 3-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
The reason this qualifies for ARPA funds is the Ag Center is considered the continuation of Governor Operations Center. It is also a place to be used in case of pandemics, such as we use for vaccinations and testing. It's also an evacuation center for schools in the area. So these are items that qualify relating to disasters or pandemics. Also note that you'll see that the Williamson County Fair Board has agreed to match this amount so that we can have better broadband at the Ag Park.
Questions? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52311, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 Health Department budget by $465,400. Revenues to come from both the Tennessee Department of Health, SFRF, ARPA, and for that one for $349,000, and Williamson County American Rescue Plan Act funds for $116,400. Motion made by Commissioner Webb, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. Public Health Committee was 7-4-0 against. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
This is a State Department of Health grant, which they ask us to use our ARPA funds. They're using the state ARPA funds, and this will have improvements to our public health facilities in both Fairview and in Franklin. Ms. Montgomery is here if anyone has any specific questions on the work that will be done.
Questions? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52312, resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Williamson County appropriating funds not to exceed $520,000 for upgrades of the County General Operations telephone system. Revenues to come from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Webb. Property Committee was 5-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
The reason ARPA funds will be used for this is we will upgrade the telephone system around the county, which will aid in any emergencies. And also, this will help us if we have another event such as what happened in Nashville with the terrorist bombing on Christmas Eve a few years ago. The phone system has not had a complete update since 2011, and so this will deal with some of those issues that have come about due to the pandemic and to that terrorist attack. Sean is here if anyone has any specific questions.
We have a question from Commissioner Tunnicliffe.
Hate to do this too, Sean. I'd love to hear what we've done to correct that with the different companies and our inward lines.
IP Flex, an MPLS network for the public safety facility. We're looking to expand that. These funds are just for the actual hardware for the phone system. We still have the PRIs coming into multiple facilities, as well as satellite capabilities and some cellular capabilities in the phone system now. But again, these funds that we're asking for now are just for an upgrade to the hardware, the functionality of being able to manage the system from each location instead of only being able to have one pane of glass for the system. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Sean or on the resolution? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Commissioner Guffey. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52313, resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Williamson County appropriating funds not to exceed $1,700,000 for the purchase and installation of a landfill containment liner. Revenues to come from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Proper motion made by Commissioner Webb, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
Again, this will be used for the landfill basically to extend the life of the landfills. You know the reason ARPA can be used for these funds, that during the pandemic, we found more people were staying and working from home, which created more use of our trash and the use of our landfill. And so this is appropriate use of the ARPA funds for this, and I don't believe Mac is here. Yeah, there he is. If you want the details regarding leachate management, Mac can help you.
Looks like we do have a question from Commissioner Hayes.
I can't help it, Mac. I have to know what it is. What exactly is a containment liner? Just entertain me.
Built out of 2 feet of compacted clay, and that compacted clay will not let anything penetrate through it. So that protects the water supply and the gases and all that kind of stuff underneath. And it's got some plumbing and stuff that goes with it to collect that juice. And then right now we're hauling it off and treating it. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mac or on the resolution? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52314, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 library budget by $954.20. Revenues to come from donations and memorials. Proper motion made by Commissioner Webb, seconded by Commissioner Nations. Library Board was 8-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Webb.
This is donations to the library, which they will be using for materials for the library itself.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52315, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into a grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Military and the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency and appropriating and amending the 22-23 Office of Public Safety budget by $5,754.78. Revenues to come from an emergency manager performance grant. Proper motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is for, to give the mayor the authority to enter into an agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of the Military for $5,754.78 for federal funding from the state.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Commissioner Herbert. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52316, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 Parks and Recreation budget by $34,766.48. Revenues to come from donations. Motion made by Commissioner Mary Smith, seconded by Commissioner Greg Sanford. Parks and Rec Committee did not meet. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
Can you hear me? This is fees that we've received, and it'll be paying the officials and scorekeepers and maintenance in the parks.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52317, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 Parks and Recreation budget by $58,500. Revenues to come from Parks and Recreation fees. Motion made by Commissioner Herbert, seconded by Commissioner Mary Smith. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is for extra supplies and materials for the Tennessee Renaissance Festival.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52318, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 Parks and Recreation Department budget by $80,000. Revenues to come from participant fees. Motion made by Commissioner Herbert. Looking for a second. Second made by Commissioner Mary Smith. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is fees received from the Performing Arts Center at Academy Park.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52319, resolution amending the 22-23 juvenile services budget by intercategory transfer of $1,486.94 to account for the salary increase previously approved by the Williamson County Board of Commissioners. Proper motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Graves. Law Enforcement Public Safety was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
This is a one-time adjustment to compensate the 3 grant positions, which are probation officers, with the recent pay raises. We have the funds available and will not have to do this in the future.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. If you're opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52320, resolution for an intercategory transfer of $70,000 between the Parks and Recreation Department to the Sheriff's Office to provide funding for festival security. Motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Graves. Law Enforcement Public Safety was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
$70,000 is coming from the proceeds of the Renaissance Festival out in Triune to cover the Sheriff's Department working security over there.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52321, resolution authorizing the county mayor to execute a contract between the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and Williamson County for a trash collecting grant for fiscal year 23-24. Proper motion made by Commissioner Herbert, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. Law Enforcement Public Safety was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
This is, again, just a resolution authorizing the county mayor to execute a contract between the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Williamson County for a trash collecting grant for the fiscal year 23-24 upcoming for litter and trash collecting.
Any questions? Seeing none, if we are ready to vote, if you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52322, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into a grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Health and appropriating and amending the 22-23 Sheriff's Office budget by $232,000. Revenues to come from grant funds. Motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Herbert. Law Enforcement Public Safety was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
This is a state grant for detection and mitigation of COVID-19 in confinement facilities such as jails, etc.
Questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, if you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52323, resolution accepting a donation of a trained German short-haired pointer canine on behalf of the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. Motion made by Commissioner Aaron Nations, seconded by Commissioner Lisa Hayes. Law Enforcement Public Safety was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
This one's self-explanatory. Gidget, who is a German short-haired pointer, is being donated, approximate value $15,000 to the Sheriff's Office.
Questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Commissioner Sanford? Sorry. It's all right. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52324, resolution accepting a donation from the DUI Court Foundation of Williamson County, Inc., and appropriating and amending the 22-23 Williamson County General Sessions Court budget by $25,000, revenues to come from donations. Proper motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Graves. Law Enforcement Public Safety was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
DUI Court Foundation of Williamson County intends to donate $25,000 to be used in Williamson County General Sessions DUI court treatment programs and efforts.
Questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52326, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 Election Commission budget by $28,996.16. Revenues to come from county general fund balance. Motion made by Commissioner Herbert, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is for additional expenses that exceeded the budget for the elections for Franklin, Nolensville, and Brentwood.
Any questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
22 yes, 1 no.
Resolution passes. On to Resolution 52327. Resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute any documentation with the State of Tennessee Division of Elections and the purchasing documentation on behalf of the Williamson County Election Commission, and appropriating and amending the 22-23 Election Commission budget by $1,025,000. Revenues to come partially from the state funds, with the remaining balance to come from the general fund. Motion made by Commissioner Herbert, seconded by Commissioner Tunnicliffe. Property Committee was 3-4-2 against. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is for state funds in the amount of $909,279 that we would receive to replace voting machines. And I'd like to ask Jonathan Duda and Chad Gray to come up for any questions.
First question is from Commissioner Mary Smith.
Hey, I don't really have any questions, but I did have some comments that I wanted to make. So I don't want to take too much time, but as most of you know, election integrity is something I am very passionate about, along with many others, some of which are here tonight. So before I go over my concerns, I just quickly want to thank all the hardworking people at our elections office, Administrator Gray, Chairman Duda, and all the members of our Election Commission for your dedication to providing the most valuable services to our county voters. I realize you have a lot of questions and requests coming your way, so thank you for your diligence in serving the community. I also want to thank Commissioner Richards for organizing the town hall we had here a couple of months ago. It was a great event, and we were fortunate to have several county, city, and state officials attend, along with approximately 85 concerned citizens. Finally, to the many constituents who have reached out regarding this resolution, thank you for the emails, the prayers, and the generous amount of volunteer time you've invested into poll watching, training, researching, analyzing, reviewing, and developing legislation to support a higher degree of election integrity across our county and the state. I am so grateful for the free thinkers who continue to ask questions and are willing to put in the time to provide valuable and critical analysis on the decisions being made on their behalf. As public servants, we should never be afraid of being respectfully scrutinized and collaborating with those who have no special interest in our processes except to see that they are trustworthy and transparent. Over the past several years, including the recent town hall meeting, there has continued to be concerns raised regarding the vulnerabilities in our election system. Out of the list of many, there are really two main ones that I want to mention directly impacting the resolution. First off, regarding the vulnerabilities of the machines, I am concerned as to whether or not we have really addressed the issues which brought us here to begin with. It was 4 years ago in 2019 the decision was made based on recommendations from the Election Commission that Dominion was the best permanent solution for our county. This decision cost taxpayers $1.5 million. As we now know, those machines lasted for less than 2 years due to a coding error that was introduced by the vendor on 7 of 19 machines, and for which the vendor, to the best of my knowledge, was not held financially liable for the cost to our taxpayers. After an investigation of the machines by the Election Assistance Commission, it was decided by Tennessee's Secretary of State that it was in the best interest of Williamson County to replace the machines. From there, we went to leasing ES&S machines, with the cost once again going to the taxpayer. But what are we really improving upon? Based on the information provided by Chairman Duda, these machines and related software are currently only certified to the Voluntary Voting System Guideline version 1.0, adopted by the EAC in 2005, which was the same as the now retired Dominion system. On top of that, we are also being requested to fund additional software and hardware components, which introduces both additional costs and potential vulnerabilities. The truth is that, according to the EAC's website, there are currently no vendors which meet the latest standard adopted in 2021, which makes significant changes to the safeguards necessary to protect the integrity of the voting process. Also, according to Chairman Duda, it may be 2026 before any of these vendors meet these new guidelines. I find this both surprising and concerning, since our Department of Homeland Security has designated our voting systems as critical infrastructure. And let's be honest, if any of us were evaluating critical business systems for our own companies, or for that matter, personal use, I don't think we would be happy if we were forced to use technology that could be up to 18 years out of compliance. So why would we settle for this for our county? And while I do respect the fact that our Election Commission was only allowed to look at certain vendors, is this really the permanent solution we want to invest our taxpayers' dollars in? I think our citizens would be better served if we continue to seek out options that give our voters a greater degree of trust and confidence. Second, I am concerned that we are completely dismissing the request from a large portion of our voters for the ability to cast their vote on a cost-effective, pre-printed, verifiable, and secure paper ballot due to the Elections Commission's preference for vote centers. These are not the ballot-on-demand style ballots or the ballots we voted on 30 years ago. Think of these ballots as actual currency, where there's a unique identifier and the ability to accurately audit and track movement through the end-to-end election process. It was just a couple of weeks ago at the Williamson County Republican Mass Convention, our Election Commission and Administrator Gray effectively conducted a paper ballot election where we saw more than 600 pre-printed ballots cast and counted in approximately an hour. So not only is it possible, if run securely and efficiently, is an option that could drastically reduce wait times like we saw this past August and November, where voters who were willing wait up to an hour and a half to vote. I can tell you for certain those lines were much shorter than 600 people. If we continue to utilize vote centers, there are only two ways to address long wait lines, which are certain to come in November 2024. We can either add more vote centers, which is currently being discussed, or we can add more BMDs to the existing vote centers, which in both cases means additional costs to the taxpayer. While I was not part of the vote to move to voting centers in 2019, I do believe we need to look more closely at the objectives of the change and whether those objectives have truly been met. If it really was a matter of convenience and an attempt to increase turnout, we may, as a result, have created vulnerabilities that compromise security, voter confidence, and transparency. And can we really state that the vote centers allow for freer and fairer elections if the number of vote centers available favors residents living in the higher density areas versus those living in the more rural areas of our county? With precinct voting, there's one location for each voter. To me, this seems less convenient for some, but definitely fairer and more uniform for everyone. As for turnout, for the last 20 years, we are fortunate to have maintained a high turnout of over 70% in all of our presidential elections, with the highest of 80% occurring in 2004, long before vote centers were introduced. So I'm not sure how much higher we can realistically expect to get, but I would suggest analyzing this trend down to the precinct level across several elections to really decide. By ignoring precinct voting as part of the evaluation process, we also ignore the benefits, including eliminating the dependency on having internet connectivity, which allows for more polling location options, including in areas where internet may be an issue. Removing the need for e-poll books and the express link vote option, which reduces equipment costs and the dependency on vulnerable technology. And, most importantly, the ability to give the voters the freedom and the choice to cast their vote on a pre-printed, secure, and verifiable paper ballot, or if they still choose or need to do so on a ballot marking device. We also cannot ignore the real possibility that we could be going back to precinct voting based on future legislation and/or legal challenges to the constitutionality of vote centers. And please don't get me wrong. As someone who has over 28 years of information technology experience, I am not at all opposed to the use of technology, but there is a right way to do it, as we saw laid out in the Arizona State Legislature, where just recently they passed Joint Resolution 1037, which, coincidentally, names the Williamson County error in their reasoning for wanting to make improvements to better secure their election system. Here is a summary of several of the requirements set forth in this bill. 1, all voting system components be designed, manufactured, integrated, and assembled by trusted U.S. suppliers based on standards set by the Department of Defense, for which my dad worked for 30 years, which makes sense for DHS-designated critical infrastructure. 2, source code be made available to the public. And 3, ballot images and log files from the tabulator be made available free of charge to the public. This is what transparency, security, and accountability look like. To be honest, I find it somewhat disappointing that another state beat us to making these recommendations, considering part of the reasoning they used came from an election held right here in Williamson County. Therefore, I believe it is in the best interest of our taxpayers to continue to lease the minimum required machines needed for the upcoming elections, and that we continue to evaluate and research the most secure and efficient way to not only protect but fortify the purity of the ballot box. We should also keep the lines of communication open with our voters so that we continue to build trust and confidence through feedback, collaboration, and transparency. Because regardless of where the funding comes from, be it county, state, or federal funds, it is all of our tax dollars paying for these systems and our voters using them. It is those stakeholders we are ultimately accountable to, and it is their experience at the voting booth that should matter most. So I do fully support, based on state statutes, the operational funding of our elections department and the need for specific machines for ADA compliance and counting purposes. I cannot support the purchase of these machines as a permanent solution, and I would hope that we could work out an agreement with the state to use the funds being offered the way our voters are asking us to. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, thank you. Just as a reminder, our rules state that commissioners get up to 3 minutes to speak, and we'll ask that you try to stay within the confines of that time limit whenever possible. Next commissioner requesting to speak is Commissioner Stresser.
I have a point of clarification. It's my understanding that if these machines are purchased, that in the future we can't bring in forensic experts to look at the software, look at the hardware, that they consider that proprietary, and we're not able to see if there's any issues down the line. Is that correct?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. The systems that we are proposing to purchase have been certified by the Election Assistance Commission, the federal commission, and have been reviewed by voting system testing labs that have been certified by the EAC. They have the ability to inspect our machines as they did with the Dominion machines in 2021. So the answer to your question is there are voting security voting system technology laboratories certified by the EAC that absolutely have the ability to inspect our machines.
Actually in use.
October of 2021, after October 21, they reviewed our logs, our equipment, and arrived at a decision of what occurred in October.
When I've heard about this, that they say it's proprietary, you can't look at it. That's not the case, that we'll have unfettered access to these machines whenever we deem necessary through this process.
Again, when we ran into an issue, we escalated it to the state. The State Election Commission escalated it to the EAC, who brought in the voting testing system testing labs. They have the ability to inspect our machines if we request it.
Because I just want to share this about an industry that I'm involved with. Can you hear me? Is my microphone on? Okay, I'll talk a little bit louder. I think it's going to be vital that outside of a problem that we have unfettered access. The industry that I work in is the pharmaceutical industry, and the FDA will show up at Pfizer, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, all of these companies unannounced. And they look at proprietary information all the time. They look at their secret sauce, their formulas, everything, all their patent work. The reason this happens is because it's so important to protect the general public, all of our friends and family members that take pharmaceutical products. Matter of fact, companies will oftentimes hire these folks too to go in and do this work. And it's done for a very important reason. And I just think with this, I'd like to know that we have a strong mechanism in action to do unannounced, unfettered, deep dive forensic audits. Because the fact of the matter is, we all know cybersecurity is a big issue, and there's big issues out there. So for me, that's got to be part of this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards. I'm sorry. I skipped Commissioner Lawrence. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to join you in thanking everybody for coming out tonight. And we have gotten a lot of emails on this subject. And frankly, I've learned a lot from some of you about the election machine process and how they work. And that's been very helpful to me to learn a lot about election integrity. And I can understand why so many of you are concerned about this, because there are a few things that are vital to our republic, and election integrity is one of them. If we don't have election integrity, then our republic is over. And, because of some concerns coming out of recent elections, particularly the one in Franklin, there's a lot of interest in this issue. And I think you guys on the Election Commission understand that. So, I want to echo a few concerns that came out, Jonathan, and get you to respond. So one of the things is vote time. If we voted for these machines, if we, compared to the vote time turnaround that we have right now, are we increasing the number of machines? Do we expect the vote time to go down in the vote centers? And how are we going to address that issue with these machines?
Thank you, Commissioner. And, I agree, absolutely agree that the most important thing that we have as election commissioners and administrators to do is to conduct elections with integrity and with confidence that the public can have. The process belongs to the public. It's fundamental to our democracy, and we all believe that. That's why we do what we do. But we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to vote, that the vote counts once, and that we have true fidelity to how that is done with transparency, and we're committed to doing that. Regarding your question, please, please say it again.
Are you increasing the number of voting machines, so you're going to decrease the voting time in the vote centers?
Yeah, first of all, the elections that we had in August and November experienced long vote times all across the state of Tennessee, not just in Williamson County. Various systems that were used, whether they were hand-marked paper ballots or ballot marking devices, experienced over an hour wait time. So you can't attribute that experience that we experienced to the method. We had complexity in the ballots in August. We had a number of judicial retentions, 51 races. And in November, we had very complex language of constitutional amendments that was the feedback we received across the state as to why we received time. But at the Election Commission, we're always striving to do better, and so we do have a plan to increase our vote centers next year. That's not part of this resolution, but our capital needs request that has been forwarded to you for next year's budget does include additional vote centers and the equipment to fund those, to help provide additional options to account for growth in Williamson County.
Commissioner Smith brought up hand-marked paper ballots or ballots that you can mark yourself to vote, and you do have an option with ESS. We talked about that in the meeting we had here. So can you tell us why you're not recommending those? Why are you not recommending those, and what would be your opposition to adding hand-marked paper ballots using this system?
That's a fair question. First of all, we sent you a detailed letter on last week explaining this in detail, and I can spend probably a couple hours how we arrived at that decision, but I'll distill it down to just a couple of points. First, the system that we have selected is the latest technology available from this vendor, which is Election System and Software. It was tested and received certification by the EAC in May of 2020. It was approved for use in Tennessee by the state in July of 2021. It should be noted that the configuration follows the recommendation of a 2018 consensus study report on the Committee of Future of Voting by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, Medicine, and National Academies Press. But specifically, those recommendations included, and I quote, elections should be conducted with human-readable paper ballots that may be marked by hand or by machine using a ballot marking device. You have those two options, and you asked if we evaluated both and how we arrived at our decision. Frankly, we have those options available to us, and right now we're not in a position of recommending that at this time, though we are continuing to look to do so. Our findings, I know tonight you heard that that there would be more reliability, that it could be cheaper, and that there is better security with hand-marked paper ballots. Our findings actually have found the opposite for Williamson County. The implementation of putting in hand-marked paper ballots costs more than the proposal that we have this evening. They are prone, hand-marked paper ballots are in fact prone to errors. They are prone to manipulation and fraud. It's one of the reasons that we went from hand-marked paper ballots to machines. That's not just, that's evidenced by in material that I had provided to you. And then lastly, with the additional cost of implementing hand-marked paper ballots for Williamson County, we can't recommend it at this time because the anecdotal evidence of what exists in Shelby County, who has that option, that only 5% of the voters voted in that method when given their opportunity to do that. And in the follow-on election after that, if you want to say that that was just the first election and it takes a while to get used to, that number actually was below 2% for their follow-on election. So the utilization and costs and the reliability and all the factors that we looked at are how we arrived at the decision we did. We did do a test of hand-marked paper ballots at the recent GOP, Williamson County GOP convention, and we received a lot of very public, very positive feedback on that. But out of 609 votes that were cast, 19 of those ballots had to be redone to be able to be cast because they were not followed by instruction, filling in an oval. Somebody put an X over a candidate, circled a candidate, whatnot. The voter intent aspect of a hand-marked paper ballot compared to a ballot marking device that assures the voter intent's retained is another area that we are just not prepared to make a recommendation to pursue right now. But finally, I have been asked this by other commissioners. The system that we're requesting to purchase has that flexibility should we decide to go in that direction in the future, should we be able to address some of those other issues. And that's one of the reasons we're making the request for the system configuration we have.
In the interest of time, we've already talked about some of this, so I'm just going to summarize. My next question was about the contracts that we actually have with these companies, and I'm going to echo Commissioner Stresser's concerns that the contracts that we have don't seem to be strong enough. In the Dominion situation, when Dominion we had the problems, and we tried to find out what the reasons for the issues were, and we couldn't get answers. It took us 18 months, as somebody said tonight, for them to finally give us their written, at least that's when I got it, a few
I
months
heard it
ago.
too.
I got my, so, and there was seemingly no penalties in the contract. I think, I'm not sure, I know our legal team did not do the contract negotiations, but I'm not sure the state is putting enough teeth in these contracts to try to hold these companies liable if things go wrong. And the performance guarantees would probably make them a lot more considerate towards answering our questions and getting in and helping us, maybe even sending people down there to help us figure out what happened and close out the election. So, for those reasons, I think it would be a better idea to take some more time to evaluate the contracts we have in place, get some things in the contract that have a little more teeth to it than what we have now, and also evaluate the other options, the paper ballot options and other things that might be available.
May I address the accountability? The ultimate accountability of our previous vendor occurred, and that is the state withdrew their approval of their use of that equipment in the state of Tennessee. Nobody can use that equipment vendor, and that is, in my opinion, the appropriate accountability that occurred in that instance. Second, you mentioned that it took so long for the report to occur. It did not take 18 months. I've heard it myself. I heard it this evening, and the fact is, by February of the election occurred in October 2021. By February of 2022, we were told by the state that we can no longer use that equipment in that configuration. That's not 18 months. Finally, on the service agreement contract, I agree with you that we need to make sure that is as strengthened as much as possible. We are using the service agreement form that has been provided by Mosley, Mr. Mosley, and we have that opportunity to build some of that concern or language into this as we negotiate the actual execution of a service agreement. We're using the service agreement that you provide to us.
Thank you, Jonathan. I
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
it.
I apologize again, Commissioner Lawrence, for skipping over you now. Commissioner Richards.
Hi.
Thank you for coming this evening. I apologize that you were unnecessarily delayed, and I apologize. I can talk louder.
Please.
I apologize that you were unnecessarily delayed. I apologize to everybody else who's having to wait for this vote. I had a couple of questions. The Dominion machines that malfunctioned, were those properly certified as the same as the ES&S machines that we're going to purchase?
Yes, they were certified by the EAC, and they were certified by the State Election Commission. However, the implementation of a BIOS update that they had performed on our machines was not completed and contributed to the issues that existed. I'm not sure if those were certified or not.
This is kind of more of a comment to you and a concern. The ballot marking device touchpad, during the municipal election, my wife was trying to select one candidate and it was selecting another candidate. Have you heard other complaints about that?
We occasionally hear that type of feedback, but we have a process in place for assistance by a poll worker to either move somebody to a different machine or, and in those instances where we have that for a machine, we have our technicians go and test the machine before we deploy it. So at any instance that we have that occur, that's reported to us, it would be taken offline and replaced or tested before brought back on.
One more question. Vote centers, this is kind of a little off. Have you seen, they're designed to increase voter turnout. Have we seen any increased voter turnout because of the vote centers?
Well, it's designed to, make it more accessible for voters, and we have absolutely seen people be able to vote where they work, where they are already shopping, not necessarily in their precincts. In some areas, we have over 60% utilization of vote centers that aren't the center closest to where people live. And that has only increased per election. So I believe the accessibility metric is being met. Secondly, the funding savings that we have as opposed to operating 43 precincts has demonstrably been a success as well. And third, the general feedback from the public is excellent about vote centers. Not having to wait in line to vote, only to be told at the moment that you've waited an hour in line that you have to go to a different precinct. We never have that complaint like we used to frequently under precinct voting.
Have the vote centers actually increased voter turnout?
They did. Cited in the presidential election.
We'll ask everyone to be quiet.
Between the presidential election of 2016, the percentage of turnout with the vote centers implemented in 2019 and November of 2020, the increase of voter turnout compared to presidential election to presidential election was 9% greater in 2020 versus 2016.
Thank you for your time.
Commissioner Aiello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for council. If the commission does not approve funding, can the election commission move forward with purchasing these voting systems if that's their intent?
It would be my opinion, yes.
Okay. And then Chairman Duda, is it the commission's intent to purchase these voting systems if not approved by the county commission?
Our commission is tasked with conducting the elections in Williamson County, and we need machines to do that. It would be our intent to proceed with what we've selected, the system we selected.
Sounds like, based on the extreme amount of discussion around these systems and the commission as a whole, that you've received a lot of input from the public and have injected those thoughts and opinions into your and the commission's analysis. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We've been receiving this feedback for 2 years at least, and we began this process of developing our RFP back in September. We have evaluated all the options. We've been asked by commissioners and the public to consider things. We have actually implemented some of the ideas that some have brought to us.
That I want to thank both you and the rest of the members that serve with you for the work that you've done on this, and I have full faith in the work that you've done and in your assessments. So I want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank the public at large for continuing to provide input and continuing to serve as the oversight mechanism for the commission as they move forward in their role in this county. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hayes.
Hi, Mr. Duda. Question. How are members of our Williamson Election Commission, how are they appointed? Who actually appoints those members?
The State Election Commission appoints our membership. We are an extension of the State Election Commission, though we are a department of the Williamson County itself.
Okay. So what would you say is your, I'm lacking the word I'm looking for, so I'm just going to go for it. What would you say is your mission as the commission to look at and manage that election commission for the people of Williamson or for that state who appoints you?
We all are required to take an oath to our duty, and our duty is to conduct. We have an extensive roles and responsibilities and duties that we have to, by oath, say that we will abide by. Those duties include operating elections fairly and without bias. It includes the way we behave, how we act, and how we represent the State Election Commission itself. It is cause for removal as well. So if we step outside of our oath, there's accountability.
Okay, I appreciate that. I do have some further comments. This is also, as Commissioner Smith said, a very sensitive topic for me. I am a native of Georgia, and many years clearly told people there is something going on here. This is not right. This is not, something's going wrong. Well, it was more than proven, I think, whether it's on paper is proven final yet, that there were some things that happened in the Georgia elections that were not appropriate. So when I moved here, I said, oh, no, we're one of 2 counties that have Dominion. I made a lot of new friends really quickly my first 6 months in Tennessee. And I am blessed to say that those who are passionate, as I am, about election integrity, pursued being poll watchers and looking out for our best interests as Williamson County residents, because God bless that person who did what she did and made sure that this was caught and Dominion is no longer allowed in Tennessee. I'm very grateful and thankful for that. With that said, I am not a supporter or proponent of machines. I think it's been more than proven over and over and over and over again how these can be hacked. They're rotten. They are not integrous machines. There is way too much room and opportunity for elections to be thrown, changed, and no documentation to show that. I mean, I don't know how much more we need. Good Lord. I mean, we've had people just here today who voiced their concerns. Let's just go outside the state to people who are experts at a higher level. I don't know. It's very disturbing to me that our commission continues, our election commission continues to say, oh, this is cheaper. It's better. No, it's not. You have so many people here, Frank Olympus, Kathy Harms, many people over and over and over who've said, there are problems. We, the people of Williamson County, do not want these machines. We want paper ballots. We want to know the people we elect are the people we elect. And it's disturbing to me that it's like, oh, well, accountability, you know. There's so many comments you said, and no disrespect, I just don't agree with, and I think it's terrible. These contracts, like Commissioner Stresser and Lawrence have stated, there are loopholes, there are issues. When I asked about inspecting the machines before my election, oh, well, it's in the state contract that we can't open the machines and look in them to make sure there's nothing nefarious in them. Why is that exactly? Why? You can shake your head no, but that's what was said. And I'm sure I could get Mr. Olympus up here to give me all kinds of points to affirm that.
Point of order, we need to direct all our questions to Mr. Duda, who's at the podium, and for those in the audience, we'll ask again for you to respect these proceedings by keeping your applause and your emotions at a level that allows us to hear the speakers and hear the answers. Is there any follow-up that you have, Commissioner Hayes?
There's additional comments I'd like to make, yes. And I do appreciate the residents of this county who have gone over and over and made efforts to come up here and speak, to send emails. I appreciate that more than anything, because that we the people of Williamson County should have a say. Precincts are not that hard. I grew up I'm 52 years old. I voted in many elections on paper ballots, and they were just fine. I grew up in Gwinnett County, which was at my 15 or 16 was the fastest growing county in the United States. We had paper ballots, and somehow we counted those, and they were secure elections. So again, don't understand why these secure paper ballots are such a problem. I don't think they're more expensive. At the end of the day, where they say, that good old saying my dad used to say, where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's way too much opportunity. And in the light of this country and where we're headed and some of the scary things that are going on, election integrity is core to our founders of this country. And it frightens me that, you know, with the findings of the Tennessee error, that Williamson Election Commission is not trying to be a leader in this in election integrity and say, you know what, I think we need to take a step back. And let's look at what the people want in this county, and let's look at paper ballots. I think it's doable, and respectfully, I do not support machines. I do not support purchasing them. I think it's a terrible idea, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Hayes. Next up, we have Commissioner Sanford.
Jonathan, we've known each other for 17, 18 years, a long time. I respect what you do. I respect you. Chad, same thing. Haven't known you that long, but I think y'all do a great job of what you do. I'm going to keep this short. I don't feel as strongly as some of my other commissioners do on this issue, just being honest, me personally. But I do believe in election integrity. I think there's flaws in both ways of voting. I think if you're going to cheat in life, you're going to cheat, right? Cheater's going to cheat, always. It's perplexing to me that based on counsel, my vote doesn't count either way. It's mind-boggling to me. That being said, I was elected by citizens in District 5. I've heard a lot more no's than yeses from my people in District 5, and I'm going to stand with my people in District 5 and vote no on this.
Commissioner Jennifer Mason.
Thank you. First off, I do want to thank you and Chad and the other members of the Election Commission. I know it is not easy to come here today, stand in front of individuals that agree or disagree with your position. It's never easy to be the person that volunteers and agrees to kind of put yourself in the hot seat. So for that alone, thank you, and thank you for standing up here and taking questions as well as feedback from the commissioners. My question hopefully will be fairly easy. It's more of a help me understand kind of situation. I've heard several times, well, let's delay it, let's continue to lease. If we were to do that and lease the equipment again, what would the lease period be for?
Thank you for your question. We had asked and received a quote, a proposal for an annual lease for 2 terms, and that's the proposal we received. But you
More of a delay lease, if we were to delay this and lease it for a period of time.
Right now, we are currently operating on an extension that you all approved in March that extends to June 30th.
Okay. And what would be the cost of that lease?
Right now, our vendor has agreed to waive that fee if we complete the purchase. The purpose of the lease extension was to work out these details with the state and to bring a purchase approval to you. But if we do not make a purchase by June 30th, on July 1st, we would have a lease payment owed for March through July of $138,000.
And I know you sent in some new numbers from the state that the state is reimbursing us for the purchase. So if you take the purchase amount minus the state funded amount, what is the difference that the county would be obligated to pay for the purchase?
$116,000.
So if I do my math correct, it will actually cost us more to lease without purchase through the end of June than it would be to purchase. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
And the machines that you're purchasing give us the ability to move to a hand-marked ballot option if that's something that the Election Commission deems appropriate. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Matt Williams.
Jonathan, thank you for coming, and thank you for everybody in the crowd for being here as well. I've got 2 questions and then a comment. Within the current process with the machines, what accountability, what certification process exists that allows us to go and double check and ensure that the tabulators at the ballot marking devices have actually, because if I remember correctly, last time we used it, you actually have a human readable form. Use the ballot marking device that marks it most of the time, but we have the option to potentially you feed it into a tabulator at the end. What happens to that physical piece of paper at the end, and how is that used to reconcile and ensure that the tabulator has it correct? If you can just expound upon that process a little bit.
Sure. It depends on the type of election. There's federal law with retention of records. For some elections, for municipal or state elections, we have state law. So the process in terms of time differs. But state law does not currently provide for us to do a hand count of ballots or to touch the ballot. We are to secure the ballots, depending on the election for a certain period of time until compelled by a court to maybe conduct a recount. So the process today is that the ballots go into sequester or go into our secure storage, and for that, depending on that period of time, are held there until a court tells us. Now, under a pilot program last year for Williamson County, we had a risk performance audit that we were able to do by selecting randomly machines and tabulators and to actually count those ballots of those machines. And that's something we supported. We completed, and we had for our elections in 2022, 100% accuracy of every count that we did after an election like that. That law is set to become more permanent next year based on our findings to the state. So in terms of process, I believe effective risk performance audits that can be expanded whenever we identify an issue more broadly, and or allowing the election commission to pick a race and do a hand count or tally that is also something that is secure and meets the federal and state requirements for securing the ballots. That's the direction we wish to go. But ultimately, that's part one of your question. Part two is, what can we do with these tabulators? The technology exists where every ballot that is cast is scanned, and we have an electronic record as well. Well, those can be shared, and this goes back to Commissioner Smith's Arizona resolution, where item 3 was that the people have access to those ballots almost immediately, the day after the election. If you want to go inspect every ballot, the electronic record would be there. It's called the People's Audit. It's something that's been brought to us by some of the folks in the very audience here. We've already been looking at implementing that. So that's another step in the process that with technology we can use to be able to get the ballots to the people and have them be able to do their own audit if they don't like the results. If they want to confirm the results on their own.
Second question. The state funding that we're getting to help offset the cost of the Dominion machines that we're looking to potentially spend here on the ESS machines, is there a timeline? Is there a time frame that we have to utilize that money? Or do we have, basically, is there a deadline to use it or are we to lose it?
It is discretional, and it was for purpose. The purpose was to replace the machines that they determined that we owned, that they can determine we can no longer use. It was a fairness principle and a mandate, and in this case it's a funded mandate, to permanently replace what they took away from us. In terms of the timeline, it took us a while to get through the state budget process to get that dollar amount. There are counties all across the state that are seeking that funding, and we made the request and received it because of their commitment to us. I have not asked them if that would be available or expires. I just know that the offer and the amount as presented to you is what is available now, and it is for purchase.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess for my comment, as far as I can think about voting in Williamson County, I can't remember using hand-marked paper ballots outside of being deployed overseas and using absentee ballots. I think that might be the only time I've actually used a hand-marked ballot. So we've always utilized machines here, but in conversations with some of my constituents, I recognize that I think, to sum it up, the concept of the hand-marked paper ballot, it creates an audit trail, right, that allows us to verify whatever the tabulated results are, right, and you've got it there to utilize, as needed. At the same time, just me looking at it, and this is just my take, I like Commissioner Sanford, if it's not necessarily passionate about one way or the other. I inherently trust our election commission, yourself and Chad Gray, but I also recognize that, similar to, I think if you go back in the pandemic, if you talk about our school board and the mask vote that was going on, there was a scenario where our school board was listening very closely to the healthcare community and saying it's safe to mask and that type of deal, but they missed an opportunity where the community was speaking pretty loudly that they just didn't want it. And, there's been some consequences on the school board probably for some of those stances they took. And I'm sitting here listening to our community. At the same time, I trust inherently in our election commission. And I don't think this is a zero-sum game. I think there's a way that we can probably bake in the concerns that we're hearing into what is most efficient way to deliver that. I don't know if what's being proposed to us right now is actually that. You know, it's being presented a little bit more as a zero sum. It's got to be one way or it's got to be the other. And I know we're still evaluating some other options to incorporate some things like that. But if we don't have a time frame on utilizing this money, you know, I'm sitting at the moment now that I would almost prefer to delay utilizing this money until we can maybe bake some of these concerns in. And, you know, it's one of those things where I trust you guys. I think your intentions are pure. But at the same time, it's not what we're hearing from the community at the moment. And what we've got in front of us may not be adequately addressing it. And like I said, I wasn't passionate one way or the other coming into this. And I feel like there's maybe an opportunity to buy some time, if at all possible. And I'm open ears to both legal counsel or yourself, or what are the consequences if we don't take action on this tonight?
Thank you, sir. I do want you to know that we are constantly exploring ways to improve how we do elections. And the feedback that we receive is part of that as well. The economics of where we are with a lease and a purchase, we're $116,000 away from a purchase of the machines that in 6 months, if we choose to go a different direction altogether, we'd have machines that we own itself. Or we can do a lease perpetual and not own something and pay more than what we would have paid to purchase it. I understand the comments and concerns that have been raised, and I understand their perspective. I'm certain that we have looked at the data and looked at the information and have arrived at our decision based on what we know, what we have heard all around. And I cannot dismiss what I know. We know that in 2,100 ballots that we received that were hand-marked, all absentee ballots in Williamson County are hand-marked. In the last November election, 2,100 of them were received. We had to inspect 150 of them to try to determine voter intent in order that they could be cast. And in those instances that we could not find voter intent because the marks were off to the side and in between two races or whatever, those people could not vote because we could not count them. I know that of hand-marked paper ballots. That is one of the reasons I can't at this time recommend them to you. Now I'm going to say this, and this will shock a lot of folks, except for those who have come to our election commission meetings. I have said it. I prefer hand-marked paper ballots personally, but until we have a way that has stringent chain of custody controls in place, that we can address some of the known past issues of hand-marked paper ballots, stuffing the ballot boxes, marking or manipulating of votes. Those things happened in the past, not in Williamson County and other places. But then finally, the cost. I can't recommend the additional cost to give the voters the choice they want, like they do in Shelby County, whenever the utilization is so low at this time. If that changes, I'm all for implementing a way to accommodate what is being asked of voters. But right now, we as a commission considered all of this over a long period of time and all the information that was available to us, and we can't recommend that at this time. But we are recommending a system that can accommodate that in the future. That's the best I have right now.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes, my comment is basically on precincts. And excuse me, I'm on 2 Certex and everything else, but excuse me, doctor prescribed, okay, and steroids. So from all the hives and everything. But on the precincts, give me a little history of voting centers.
Yes.
Where they came from. Are they state-driven?
Yep.
I have been on this commission for some time, as Rogers mentioned it. I enjoy getting out there, meeting the people. I like sitting out under an umbrella at the Fairview precinct, but I've noticed lately when people would come in, I don't know if they're voting in Fairview or not. They may be voting in Franklin. They may be voting in Brentwood. what could we be, mean, or, you know, they're voting at Fairview, but for someone in Brentwood, what could we, as election commission, about precincts?
Vote centers are an extension, really, of early voting. Early voting has been in place since 1994, where you early vote at locations across the county, and you have an e-poll book that registers your vote in real time, so you can't go across the county and go vote at another early voting center. It's identical technology, it's identical premise, it's identical to what we've done since 1994 in Tennessee and Williamson County. Over 80% of the voters in 2020, November 2020, voted by early voting. You know, it's very popular here. And the vote centers where we have the ability to register somebody live voting, whether they go to Brentwood Library because they're driving home from Nashville at 6 p.m. and it's the closest thing to the interstate, or in my case, I'm in Cool Springs working, I can go across the street to the convention center as opposed to driving all the way back to my precinct to vote. It's an extension of early voting. That's how we had viewed it, that's how it was designed, and it's been, in my opinion, expressly and very much successful. We still report to this day every election by precinct. Our results are certified at the precinct level. You have the clarity that was required of the Constitution. But the Constitution also says that the state legislator can set laws, empowers the state legislator on how we actually vote, and that's what they have done. So, to answer your question, the vote centers. I heard tonight the term Obama vote centers was introduced by Obama. This was 1994. This concept of being able to vote and utilizing real-time data of when you vote, so you can't vote in other locations. That exists back to 1994. It was not an idea that was as represented.
Did it become state law? What year did it become state law?
For the first pilot program was Rutherford County, and we saw the success that they had experienced, and we asked for that by private act for us, and that was in 2018. This commission voted unanimously to fund the program. We presented to you that it would result in cost savings, and it would allow people the convenience of voting, and we've been able to demonstrate that.
Nations.
My question may be more appropriately directed to legal counsel. I'm sorry, Mr. Mosley. I'm fascinated by the state law regarding this issue. So this resolution is this body authorizing Mayor Anderson to execute the purchase documents for these machines, correct? And if this body unanimously votes no, we don't want these machines, it's my understanding that the Election Commission then is under a mandate to move forward with the purchase of these machines. And I understand that is what they will do. So it feels very much to me like this vote is an exercise in futility. Am I missing something in state law?
Election Commission has no funding source in and of itself. So it is funded and its operations and the voting machines by the county commission. It is delegated the operational decision-making and to make sure that that function is carried out. The statute says that the commission can adopt the machines, which to me means that there's a recommendation that you adopt or don't adopt, an up or down vote. If you vote it down, the statute then says the Election Commission can go ahead and enter into and equip the precincts with the necessary voting machines. There's another statute that says if you do not fund the operations of the Election Commission, they can take you to Chancery Court to get the funding necessary for their operations. So then you would be in front of a judge to determine whether or not the determination of the Election Commission was reasonable, not arbitrary, capricious, et cetera, as the standards might be interpreted, and the judge would make that determination. So it's a very awkward process. It's not a clear line. of demarcation as to where the responsibilities lie, but it is clear they have the responsibility to make sure the election machines are there and that the operations of the election process are met. Our obligation as a county commission is to fund those operations unless it's a municipal operation, election, in which case, as you saw earlier, the municipalities have to reimburse. If there's a special state election, the state has to reimburse. So there are other election-specific funding mechanisms, but the general mechanism is by the county commission.
That was a very eloquent, lawyerly way of saying, we're getting these machines whether we want them or not. Okay. Well, I sat in my car before I came in, and I've been getting these emails all day long and reading them, but I sat there and I did not count, but I would estimate something like 100-ish emails from my constituents, and not one of them was in support of these machines. So be it an exercise in futility or not, I have to vote no.
Commissioner Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jonathan, thanks for all your work. You and I have spent many phone calls discussing this issue, and I appreciate the time and the manner in which you and the commission have approached it. Certainly appreciative to the folks in the crowd who have voiced their concerns. One question I have is I'm sitting here thinking through the numbers and what our obligation is, as Commissioner Nations just helped us understand, thank you, is when is the next election that the commission is going to be responsible for?
The Brentwood, we're currently in the process of, we just had the Brentwood, but we have a City of Franklin. We have an annexation this summer for the City of Thompson Station. We have Franklin municipal election in October, and then we enter into the 2024 cycles with the March presidential primary preference, party preference.
So is a short-term lease to get through that even a viable option?
It is an option. It's not one that we are requesting. That would be on your decision. The mechanics of the cost of 6 months to lease the machines from July 1st to the end of the year is $498,000, and we're not supportive of that.
Thank you. I've received many emails from constituents in District 8 who have, been very articulate in their concerns. And even though this may be an exercise in futility, I can't support this resolution and will vote no.
Next up, we have Commissioner Clifford.
Chairman, I think my question's probably directed at council, but maybe Chairman Duda can help respond. Does state law require Williamson County to have voting machines?
Law requires any precinct of over 300 people to have voting machines.
Is there any scenario where Williamson County doesn't have voting machines? Okay. Next question, I think, is related to the 3 scenarios that you provided in your memo. You have suggested scenario 1, where it's paper ballots prepared by ballot marking devices cast by tabulators. Scenario 2 and 3 were similar in that they use a machine, but included hand-marked ballot options, the third being the hybrid. I noticed in the memo that one of your big concerns was the percent use of hand-marked ballots and the study done in Shelby County. Is that the primary concern for not using hand-marked ballots?
The concerns for using hand-marked ballots also includes how we implement it. Let me back up for 1 second. your previous question about our machines, something that we're required to do, you've received 100 emails today from folks saying they want hand counting of ballots. We are not permitted by law to do that, period. It's not an option that I could do if I wanted to. There are certain limitations we have to operate within it. And so machines are a part of this discussion one way or the other for those who are saying that they can't vote because they've been told no, hand counting only. But the options that we laid out include our current system of a ballot marking device, a uniform voting for all voters, our current system. The second option it was just hand-marked paper ballots. With our vote centers, it would require us to have ballot-on-demand printing. We are not recommending implementing that now because we would want to develop a plan of implementation, not just purchase the equipment, but we need to be prepared on how that would be. The third option is a hybrid where a voter is given their choice, how they prefer to vote. It's frankly something my preference, but I can't recommend that at this time because of the implementation plan, because of things like a chain of custody, a robust chain of custody of inventory of all ballots, which we currently don't utilize. There are other extenuating factors of implementing hand-marked paper ballots that are just, it isn't just cost-driven, it's process-driven that we're not prepared to do today, but we're going to continue to look at every way we can.
If costs were not part of your analysis, would scenario 2 or 3 be an option for you to seriously consider?
I've said it at election commission meetings. I want to go to that hybrid system. Ultimately, I want to take the time to develop that plan, but it is going to require additional costs, and the utilization is just not there to justify it. I'm surprised by that. When Shelby County put their hybrid system, I thought we'd have over 50% ask for hand-marked paper ballots based on the feedback I'd been receiving for the last 2 years. And when the percentage was less than 20, I was shocked, and when it was less than 5, I was floored.
I guess my comment on those 2 points would be, I think I would like to see the option presented, perhaps, where we had the opportunity as the commission to discuss the financial piece, right? Because if we're responsible for fiscal approvals, perhaps letting us have that opportunity at the front end and then having to whittle it down might be a better approach.
Then we, as a commission, should submit a $600,000 capital budget to you on this next month, as opposed to, I think we're asking for about 300.
Perhaps that might be a reason why it doesn't get approved, but we haven't been given that opportunity to discuss that.
Agreed.
And I guess the only other
Understood.
comment I would make is I think Williamson County is significantly different than Shelby County, so I'd be interested in kind of further analysis between utilization, perhaps, of what Williamson County might expect as compared to a major city like Shelby County. Those would be my 2 comments.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Landry.
Thanks everyone for being here. I received the emails. I really respect the time and effort that's been made with these. And this is soul searching for me because I love Williamson County, first and foremost. And I want a fair and always a validated election, no matter what. My question to you, Jonathan, and the committee, I really appreciate what y'all have done. And the question is, if there is in question, we're using the machines, we can have a hand-counted.
Since 2019, every ballot that has been cast in Williamson County has been a paper ballot, which allows us to go back and hand inspect them.
Have a hand-counted audit.
Correct.
Got to be 100% sure of that. You're telling me?
Absolutely. That's the benefit of a ballot system that we had. In October 2021, we had to use the hand count of the Franklin municipal election to verify the tabulator results that were produced by those machines, because we had a question on how the question of the anomaly, if you will. But we were able to hand count that election to confirm it, to assure people that it was 100% accurate.
That's very important to us and the people of Williamson County, and
Bottom line.
everybody in this room, without a doubt. I guess my next question is, if this were to pass tonight, do you commit and your board commit to really looking at all the options that are available to us? Like you said, you like option 3 personally. I would really request that from our part. I like what Commissioner Clifford said. It's really important that we see the options. You've heard the people, and it just, the integrity's got to be here. I love that we can have a hand-counted audit. I do have to trust you that we will look at all the options available to us. It's so important if we have a time frame we have to move forward on. But I just can't tell you how passionate I am about this being done correctly. So thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for the work y'all have done, and thank you, people, for being here. I appreciate
We
it.
are committed to looking at every option and even future technologies we don't even know of today to run the best elections for.
I'm talking a little more quick than that.
I understand. I understand. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Herbert,
Call the question.
got a request to call the question. Do I have a second? Second. Is this by voice? This will be a voice vote. All those in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Question is called. Before we vote, I just, Chairman Duda, I really appreciate you being here tonight. It's after 10 o'clock. I know you have a family. I know you have a regular job. Yours is a volunteer position that I would not accept, and I know it often goes thankless. So let me, hopefully on behalf of everyone, at least say thank you for what I know you have done, the work you have put in, the integrity, the intellect, and coming before us and answering all these questions tonight. And I commend you for it, and I thank you for it. With that, if we're ready to vote, if you are in favor of this resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, signify by pressing your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Commissioner Ricky Jones. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
12 yes, 11 no.
Fails.
The resolution actually fails for lack of a majority. It needs to be a supermajority or just
Rules specify majority is 13 votes.
because of the absentee that we have, the resolution has failed. With that, I think if I've had a few text messages ask me for a break, so if we can, we'll take a 10-minute recess and then reconvene to finish the rest of the resolutions. Meet back here in 10 minutes. Have everybody back. I'm seeing Betsy Hester. Who else? I guess that's it. There she is. Okay. All right, we're going to move on through the rest of the resolutions for tonight. The next resolution is 52328, resolution appropriating and amending the 22-23 county clerk's budget by $40,000 for equipment and personnel costs, revenues to come from filing fees. Motion from Commissioner Herbert. Well, it went off my screen. I believe it said, well, we got a new motion here. All right, motion from Commissioner Morton, seconded by Commissioner Sanford. This one had a budget committee meeting only that approved it by 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is to provide office equipment and operating costs for the county clerk's office, and it'll be paid for with the recording fee that they receive.
Any questions? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. If you're in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52329. This resolution will require an amendment. Resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a long-term lease agreement with the Williamson County School District. Proper motion made by Commissioner Hester, seconded by Commissioner Morton. The Education Committee was 5-4-0 against. Property Committee was 5-4-0 against. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Landrum.
Yes, I have an amendment. It's on the floor. Okay. I have an amendment in the top headline, amending the heading to the read is intent of lease property to the Williamson County School District for an innovation hub. That's a different language.
Proper motion made by Commissioner Landrum. Do I have a second on the amendment? Second. Commissioner Guffey seconds. Any questions on the amendment?
You can do that voice.
Say again.
Yes. Yes, there's a number 2. We can take them together? Yes, you may. Okay. And amend the final paragraph, correct, to read, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session this 8th day of March 2023 hereby express the intent to authorize the mayor to lease the located property at 106 Claude Yates Road, Franklin, Tennessee 37064 to the Williamson County School District. Said lease to be properly advertised and considered by the Board of Commissioners at a future meeting. Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, and I understand we can vote on the resolution now as amended. So this will be one vote.
Well, you got to vote on the amendment together. You got to
Vote on the amendment.
And there's questions.
Understood that. So we are voting on the amendment. Any questions on the amendment? I have a question from,
It says the 8th day of March. Should that say the 8th day of May? We are in May, correct? Okay. And then after that, it says to lease the property located at 106 Claude Yates Road? Okay. If we can make those corrections, I would be happy.
Typo, yes.
Yes, they're just typos.
any other questions or comments on the amendment? Seeing none, we will be voting on the amendment first. If you're in favor of the amendment, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
The amendment passes. We're now back to the resolution. Voting on the resolution, are there any questions?
As amended.
As amended. Seeing none, voting on the resolution as amended. If you are in favor, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whidbey.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes as amended. Resolution 52330, resolution setting the Williamson County Hotel Motel tax rate for the 23-24 fiscal year. Proper motion made by Commissioner Jennifer Mason, seconded by Commissioner Paul Webb. Tax Study Committee was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is just to set the hotel motel tax at 4%, which is the same amount that it's been for the several years.
Any questions? Seeing none, if we're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52331, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Brentwood concerning the collection of municipal property taxes. Proper motion made by Commissioner Mason, seconded by Commissioner Herbert. Tax Study Committee was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is just an agreement for the county trustee to collect property taxes for the city of Brentwood.
Any questions? Seeing none, if we're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52332, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Franklin concerning the collection of municipal property taxes. Proper motion made by Commissioner Mason, seconded by Commissioner Herbert. Tax Study Committee was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee was 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is for the county trustee to collect property taxes for the city of Franklin.
Any questions? Seeing none, if we're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52333, resolution accepting the donation of a 2023 Chevrolet Silverado four-wheel drive crew cab pickup on behalf of the Williamson County Office of Public Safety. Resolution motion made by Commissioner Mary Smith, seconded by Commissioner Jeff Graves. Law Enforcement Public Safety was 4-4-0 against. Property Committee 5-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
Where Williamson County Fire and Rescue, Inc. Recently purchased a 2023 Chevrolet Silverado four-wheel drive crew cab pickup and is donating it back to the county.
Questions? Seeing none, if we're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52334, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Juvenile Court Judge and the Williamson County Mayor to sign grant contract documents with the State of Tennessee Department of Children's Services. Proper motion made by Commissioner Lisa Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Aaron Nations. Law Enforcement was 4-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Sanford.
This is the contract for our intensive probation positions in juvenile court, and they've had this for the last 8 years. The new contract will begin July 1. Funding will be by a separate resolution to come.
Any questions? Seeing none, if we're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52335, resolution to surplus and approve the conveyance of animal care equipment and authorize the Williamson County Mayor to execute all documentation needed to complete the conveyance. Proper motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Herbert. Property Committee was 5-4-0 against. Public Health 7-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is for the Williamson County Animal Care Center to donate a surgical table that they do not use to the Cheatham County Animal Control.
Questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, if you're in favor of the resolution, signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 52336, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement with the City of Fairview for the provision of a health care clinic. Motion made by Commissioner Hayes, seconded by Commissioner Jones. Public Health Committee was 7-4-0 against. Property Committee 5-4-0 against. Budget Committee 3-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Herbert.
This is for just the county and the city of Fairview to have an agreement to continue to operate the clinic in Fairview.
Any questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all in favor signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Final resolution of the evening, Resolution 52337, resolution to name a bridge located on Kingston Road in Fairview and in Williamson County as the Gordon Lampley Memorial Bridge. Motion made by Commissioner Ricky Jones, seconded by Commissioner Greg Sanford. The Highway Commission was 5-4-0 against. Explanation, please, Commissioner Jones.
Yes, Gordy, as we knew him in Fairview, served the community as city manager and mayor. He served in the U.S. military and was respected by many out there, farmed in the community, and pretty good basketball player. So we would like to name this small bridge on Kingston Road next to his family farm in his honor.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Any questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor signify by pressing your yes button. Any opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change their vote, please do so at this time. Record the vote, please, Mr. Whitby.
23 yes, 0 no.
I want to once again thank the sheriff's deputies for being here tonight. This was a long meeting, and while we sat through it, you guys stood through it. And I know that would be hard on my knees, so I thank you for your service to the community. Is there any other business? Yes. Is there any other business to come before this board? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.